Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you everyone for coming in to our ASAPA Summer Annual Conference. I am Montasir Abbas, Professor at Virginia Tech and the current chair of ASAPA. And we have our executive committee members here with us. I'll let them go around just quickly and introduce themselves.
Yasmin.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم، اهلا بكم وسهلا. انا الدكتوره ياسمين أبوسمرة, Professor of Biochemistry, Director of the Division of Human Sciences in Sonora University. By the way, الكوليدج حقتنا اترفعت لجامعة and now it's Sonoran. So I'm in the EC committee for this round. المسؤولة عن ال Office of Planning. I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Yasmin. Go ahead, Beckry, please.
Hello, Sabah al-Khair. My name is Beckry Abdel-Magid. I'm a professor and chair of the Department of Composite Materials Engineering at Omer State. And I am a member of the executive committee, and I'm very happy to be here in the annual conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Beckry. Mohammed.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Good morning, everybody. Mohammed Khalil. I'm a professor of anatomy at the School of Medicine, University of South Carolina, Greenville, and I'm the treasurer of ASAPA. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will share my screen quickly just to go over the program very quickly here and give you an expectation of what you will see. We have a very full program, very nice program, well designed. The other executive committee members are going to join during the day. So we will start with a promotion and tenure session. We will share with you what we know about the promotion and tenure process. And the reason we had certain numbers of the executive committee be panelists, these are the people who served on promotion and tenure committees at some levels. So I personally served on the university level promotion and tenure. So I was privileged to look at about 300 different cases from all the different colleges at Virginia Tech. And Professor Yasmin Abusamra and Professor Beckry Abdel-Magid have also served on similar capacities. So that's the first session. And then as you will see in the session itself, of course, the mission of a faculty member includes research, teaching, and outreach. So we divided the following activities in the day about each one of those mission. So research, we're going to talk about funding directions, lessons learned, and then we're hoping that some of you are going to step up and just tell us your experience with any recent funding successes and things that you would like to share with others. Then we are going to have an education session by Professor Mohammed Khalil, and I will introduce him properly at the time. I've seen what he has done in this area, and it's truly impressive and beautiful to learn. So I urge you to stay for that session and attend it. It's going to be very helpful. And then we have the outreach and collaboration. And for that, we have three invitees. We have Zahara for education, and Dr. Awad Abdelhalim and Ms. Ilham Ali are going to talk about that. And Sama Echo and Dr. Salah Abusin will give us a presentation. And then from SAPAA, Mr. Farid Zein is going to also give us a presentation. The focus of the outreach and collaboration session is about basically outreach, but we are doing it in such a way that we want to be able to do something during this upcoming year. So it's a short-term, but also mid-term and long-term planning with our sister organizations. That's going to be today's program, which is basically a workshop. And then for tomorrow, we are planning to have a public conference. So we're going to have the keynote speech by His Excellency Ambassador Dr. Nuruddin Sati هيتكلم عن الواقع السودان الواقع وآفاق المستقبل. We will have then another very nice community targeted session that is going to be moderated by Professor Yasmin Abusamra about challenging facing Sudanese communities. And for that, we have 3 different activities. One of them is about family challenges. We have Dr. Ramani Hassan will talk about family challenges adjust to the unadjustable. And then we have Ustaz Mohammed Abdel-Magid, and he's going to talk about estate planning basics for everyone, أساسيات التخطيط المالي. And then we're going to have a panel, and we will be joined by Ustaz Samah Salman and Engineer Mohammed Al-Tahir Adarop. And then we have Professor Khalil Bushara and myself. And basically, this is going to focus on opportunities in the education system in the United States, higher education systems, both from the perspectives of those who has been through the program and who can offer some pointers to us, and from the other side, the faculty side. So Professor Khalil Bushara is in the medical field and I'm in the engineering field, but there are commonalities and there are certain pointers we can offer to those who would like to pursue higher education. After that, we're going to have a short break, and then ASAPA members are going to have their business meeting with us. We're going to present what we have done during the year, and we have other things like bylaw amendments and future directions and so on. So we're very happy to have you here. We are really excited, and we hope this is going to be the beginning of a lot of collaboration, the beginning of a lot of interaction with the community and within the ASAPA members themselves. So without further ado, I'm going to start now the promotion and tenure session. So I'm going to stop sharing this, and I will share my presentation. And for this session, as I mentioned, we have 2 panelists. So I'm going to give a presentation, and then they might have, they're going to share their experience as well and their pointers. And then we're going to have an open session. And that's really the focus, that you guys can ask questions. If you have anything that is not clear in the process, you can ask, and then we hopefully can offer you some guidance on that. So, sorry, I shared the wrong one, the research. I want the research, I want the promotion and tenure one. No, I am sharing that.
Yeah, that's it.
I saw 2 in front of me. All right, so guidance for promotion and tenure. So I prepared a few slides, and basically I want to take everyone through the general process of what is a promotion and tenure to start with, as you are navigating it. What is the good, the bad, and the ugly? So it's a light talk in a sense, but I hope that we're going to provide some useful tips. So what is the good about tenure? Why do we care about tenure? If you get tenure, you have a job for life. That's what probably you have heard before. And that's one of the key points that faculty members pursue faculty career. But I put sort of in there, and because of course you can do certain things, hopefully not. But there are certain things that if anyone does them, they're going to lose their job no matter what. So anything that is illegal, anything that is has a scandal to it, and so on. If you are tenured somewhere, you are tenured everywhere almost, because if you are tenured, if you achieve tenure in one university and you want to be moving to another university, or they want to recruit you, they're not going to have you go through the whole process again. Otherwise, they know nobody's going to come to them. So having a tenure at some institution is very significant step in your career. When you are promoted to full professor, you have academic freedom, kind of. And the reason behind that is, when you are full professor, well, first of all, you don't have any further promotion to get. So you're not really trying to do things that everybody else would want you to do. You kind of focus now on your own research interest, your own passions in terms of teaching, research, and outreach. If you want to focus all your work on teaching, nobody's gonna tell you otherwise, and so on. I said kind of because if you have a research program and you are funding graduate students, then you're kind of forced into obtaining research funding. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to fund them. And of course, if you are again have obligations towards certain activities, then you kind of have those obligations. You can jump out of them. But it's very nice to have that academic freedom to do what you feel that you want to do. The bad, it's 6 years to get tenure, or you are out. Meaning that it is, you probably already know this, but if you don't get tenure, you don't get another chance to actually apply for tenure. It's either you get it or you're going to have to leave the university within a year. But I put sort of because, again, there are some situations where you can stop the clock. For example, if you have a baby, whether you are the father or the mother, some universities allow even the fathers to take that 1 year extension. With COVID, there were some other rules that allowed people to take some extensions if their activities are affected by COVID and so on. It is not something you can catch up on easily, meaning that it's a 6 year, but you have to start right from the beginning. Because if you don't, and if you get stuck towards the 3rd year or 4th year, probably it's too late in the game to do anything significant at that point. So something you must act on from the very beginning. And the other bad thing is that it is not completely under your control. So you have a lot of chances, opportunities to do things. But again, like when you apply for funding, maybe you don't get the funding. When you are teaching and putting all your effort, sometimes you get those 2 or 3 angry students who are going to give you bad reviews. So not everything is under your control, but of course, you can help the process, and if you have a snafu, you can fix it if it's just once or twice. But that's something you have to keep in mind. The ugly. No one knows or tells you what actually is enough to get tenure. And that's the kind of the subtle message I tried to put in my presentation as well when I say sort of, kind of, almost, because that's the language you're gonna hear a lot when it comes to promotion and tenure. So in our case, for example, at Virginia Tech, we keep hearing those, you have to have at least $1 million in research funding. You have to have, like 20 or 25 journal papers. But these are only hearsays. And then when you look at the actual cases that got tenured or did not get tenure, it is hard to validate because it is really not just one measure. It's all the different measures together. And I'll talk about that a little bit in the next slide or so. The other ugly thing is that your rivals can hurt you. Just keep in mind, not everyone is ethical, and be very careful in the beginning of your career. Don't make enemies. I know sometimes it's a thin line because sometimes you might get bullied or you might get might get too much to the point where you have to defend yourself. But be careful. Don't go out and make enemies. In the process itself, there are many places where you can get hurt in that process. High stress also is a very ugly thing because it can damage your health and it can damage your family. And one thing that you need to learn is to compartmentalize, meaning that if you are at work, you're focusing on work. When you get home, you are home. Don't get things affecting other things. Be very compartmentalize, basically. Have different things in different compartment in your mind. So what is the underpinning rationale? And this is one thing that you might not hear very clearly in the guidelines. Maybe it's not written. Maybe it's some of the unwritten rules. But it is something that you need to know. For promotion and tenure, when you are going from assistant professor to associate professor and getting tenure, The criteria here is really based about trying to look at you and project your success in the future. So are you projected to perform well over your career? Because universities know that once they give you promotion and tenure, it is very hard to get rid of you after that. So it's kind of getting married in a sense to you from the university. So they want to be very careful. They're trying to project your success. Are you going to be successful in the future? But there are some criteria about have you excelled in at least one area of the outreach, research, and teaching. And this can be specific to a certain university as well. But so some universities, R1 universities, research focused, are going to focus more on research. Some teaching universities are going to focus on teaching, and there are some extension, for example, colleges and so on, that might focus more on the outreach. So also by college, by department, and by university. But usually they want you to excel at least in one area. For promotion to full, it's a different criteria. It's not about what you're going to do in the future. It's about what you have done in the past. So have you achieved international recognition? That's in general what makes you a full professor. But the one thing that I wanted to highlight is you need to pay attention to your actual status, what you have achieved, versus the metrics measuring your status. So you might have achieved international recognition, but maybe the metrics, like how much money did you bring, and how are your student evaluations, and so on, might not show that. So it's going to be difficult to articulate that in your case. And it could be the other way around. Maybe you were lucky and you got a lot of money and you have really perfect scores in teaching and so on, but you are not really internationally recognized. So you got to balance those two. Basically, you want to shoot for being internationally recognized, but make sure that you have the metrics to show up for it so that it's easy to articulate your case. After that, we're going to look at the actual process. So how does it work? And again, this is, I said, can vary because different universities are doing different things sometimes. But usually, at least at Virginia Tech, we have annual reviews. So every year you have the faculty activity report, what you have done through the years and so on. And then you get feedback about that. Not much feedback, but you at least get some sort of a feedback. Some universities might do that better. Some universities do it every 2 years. Some universities do it at the midpoint, like the third year, and then only then at the time you go for promotion. But you have those annual reviews. And then at some point, you're going to say that I want to go up for promotion and tenure. Usually, if you are given the full 5 years to apply, people use the 5 years to apply. But if you were lucky enough to get something very significant, you can go early. You can go 1 year early. And most of the time, universities are going to allow you to go for 1 year earlier if you want to. But it's a risk you take. After that, when you submit your dossier, the university is going to get some external review letters. And usually they come to you and say, tell us some names of people who would be familiar with your expertise and in your area that are well known in your area. You're going to put some names, and then the promotion and tenure department committee is going to also find some names, and then they're going to do a mix. So they might pick like 3 of your suggested reviewers and 3 of their suggested reviewers and send them letters and say, here is a dossier of the candidate, please review it and bring it back to us by a certain date. The thing about these letters is that they are confidential. And that's part of what makes people not sure about what actually happened in the process. Because you might have everything very nice in your dossier, but you don't, God forbid, if you don't get tenure, it might be some of those review letters that said this person really is not doing at all very great because, in our field, we are expecting a little bit more of that or a little bit more of this. they would not be tenured in our university if they were in our university, those kind of things. It might be the other way around. You might get very strong recommendation letters that are going to make the difference for you. So this part here is also the next bullet point, and the next 3 bullet points actually can change by university. At Virginia Tech, we have Department Promotion and Tenure Committee, and then the department head. Each one of them evaluate their dossier, and if one of them says, okay, it moves on to the next level. In some other universities, they have to both agree. In some other universities, the department head can overrule the department PNT. So that depends on the different places. But at Virginia Tech, either one, if either one is okay, it moves on to the next level. The next level is the college PNT. So the college PNT committee would consist of all the department heads and a member from each one of the department promotion and tenure committee. But again, that can vary by different university. And then you have the dean. And also in our case, if either one of them agrees, it moves on to the next level. And then it comes to the university promotion and tenure. And that's where I served for about 3 years. And that's where, in our case, it is 8 different faculty members and the 8 different deans or 7 deans and the provost. So this is like the final round. In some universities, there is no university PNT. It stops at the college PNT. So it's also that varies. You need to be aware of what is happening at your university. So in our case, university promotion and tenure evaluates all the dossiers, and then we make the final recommendation. The provost takes that and gives it to the president. He ratifies it and then send it to the board of visitors. In some places, it's called the board of regents and so on. But these are the members sitting on top of the university, appointed usually by the governor. And at that point, it's just a matter of signature because they don't even look at the individual dossiers. It's just that we have like 100 faculty members who got promoted, and then they sign, and then you get to party at this point. So that's the whole process in that sense. What are the success factors that you need to keep in mind? Your metrics, of course, are very important, right? So, and again, you have research, teaching, and outreach, and then you have your articulation, because you write in your dossier, what is it that you have done, and why do you think that you should go forward with the promotion? And sometimes it's very rigid process. Sometimes you are free to write what you want. In my case, I wrote about not only the grants that I obtained, but also the grants that were recommended for funding. For example, there was one specific grant that was for 12 million, and it was recommended for funding, but there was a political level where the Secretary of Transportation determines which grant to be given based on the region of the country. So it was not technical. And I articulated in my case that, this is not I've already succeeded in doing that. Now, whether it was selected or not, that's not beyond my control. That's beyond my control. So you have the ability to talk about your case, articulate your case. But it's very important that you are mentioning your metrics and you are highlighting those very well. Some colleges have specific requirements, so be aware of that. College of Engineering, for example, in our case, put a lot of weight on the money that you bring. But some other colleges in the the humanities field, for example, they focus more on the book authorship. And some other colleges that focus on elite journals only. So we have the business college here focused on specific list of journals. If you get published in one of those, these are what they count. And these journals are very hard to publish in. So it's typically, if you have like 3 papers in those journals over the 6 years, you get the promotion and tenure. And they don't care about any other journals that you publish, sort of. There are some other disciplines or colleges that focus on the teaching excellence. And a lot of colleges also focus on the PhD students you graduated. So at least you have to have one. And then you have like one or two in the pipelines. But there are, again, some, depending on your situation, your university might not have a PhD program, for example. So they might be focused on master students. So these are the things that you need to ask the department head, and you need to attend workshops at your universities that are going to tell you what they focus on in your situation. And then I mentioned earlier the confidential letters. So these are beyond your control mostly, but the only thing that you can do early on is to make sure that you are recognized. So in the early years, go to conferences, talk to people, make sure that you are known when you are present original ideas, present things that are useful so that people remember you. When they get your letters, they remember you. And then the committee votes, of course, are going to be part of your success factors. And some places, again, don't just look at the metrics, but also look at you, because they are trying to figure out if you are a colleague that they want to keep. So they're not going to kick you out because they don't like you. But there are those situations where you are in the gray area, and he's or she's somebody nice is going to make a difference at that point. So make sure that you're getting along with people. So I put some quick things for advices, what you do in each one. For research, the number one advice: plan. You have 5 years. Don't do the work in the last 2 years. Plan ahead and see what you want to do. Develop milestones. So for yourself, the second year you're going to be doing this, the third year you're going to be doing this, and so on. And manage your time very carefully. Time can make it or break it for you. Diversify your research portfolio. There are certain research that we have to do because it is easy to get funding on, but it is boring. I'll give you that. I had my share of those. But you have to bring bread to the table, and these are the things that you need to do. But make sure that you are also doing some innovative stuff that you love to do, so that you have. They're going to ask you when you write your dossier to provide 5 samples or 3 samples of your research writing, depending on the university. So you be prepared to have some very nice publications that are creative, have impact, and so on, so that you can highlight them. Collaborate, and don't always lead. Leading is good, but not always. You have to collaborate with senior faculty, because that's how you learn from them, and that is going to be helpful for you. Learn about grant writing itself and practice for it. So meaning that it's a science and it's an art to write grants and to be successful at them. So spend some time to do that. Work with trusted partners and review each other's work. This is actually something that I haven't necessarily done a lot of, but in hindsight, I think it's really a good thing. I wish I have done more of it. You're going to have to work with trusted partners. You can't just work with everyone. But if you have a circle of trusted people that you're working with, help each other, review each other's work. Don't send the proposal to the NSF and wait for 6 months to tell you back that you missed this or this was not really clear. You can save a lot of time when you have people review your proposal and highlight those things for you. But you have to trust them, because otherwise, there is still some academic, some people might steal ideas sometimes. So you're going to work with people you trust. Brainstorm and keep a diary of ideas. Whenever you get an idea, write it down and brainstorm with people. It is always like putting 2 mirrors in front of each other's. You get multitude of ideas when you have that brainstorming session. Recruit outstanding students. They make it or break it for you. And think of it this way. If you have 10 graduate students and every one of them is giving you 2 hours of your own time, an equivalent of 2 hours of your own time, that's half a week in addition to what you are able to do. But if each one of them is taking away 2 hours of your time, then half of your week is gone. And it's very important to have outstanding students. You're not going to get them the day you go out to get them. You have to recruit them, and it takes time. And I put only because the mediocre students can really kill your motivation, can really waste your time. Attend the latest workshops in your area. Go to workshops, go to conferences, have those discussion and ideas. And sometimes it changes your perspective very quickly when you are discussing with other people. You might have a certain idea that you think is great, and it might be great. But when you are talking to people, you find out that they are not really in tune with it. So if you are writing a grant, they are going to be the reviewers. They're not going to like it. You're going to be wasting your time. But when you're talking with people, you are going to get a sense of where the profession is going and what they consider urgent and what they consider just nice to do later on. So remember, most of your funding is peer-reviewed. And so that related to the previous point I mentioned. But that's important because, again, it's your peers who are reviewing it. So if you shoot too much over their head, they're not going to fund it. They're not going to like it. If you are shoot too low, they're not going to be impressed, and they're not going to fund it. So there is actually a sweet spot that you need to learn and calibrate as you are moving forward in your career, both for your research and for your publication. You want to shoot right at the top of everyone's head. You're challenging yourself to move up a little bit, but not too much, because they're not going to like it this way. And devote a specific time for publishing, maybe every Friday, maybe every Saturday, whatever it is. Have a specific time for publishing and paper writing. Otherwise, it's gonna slip away from you. In terms of teaching, pay attention to student perception of teaching surveys, including the distribution. Is it a normal distribution? Is it bimodal distribution, meaning that half of the class love your teaching, half of it hate your teaching? Because if that's the case, there is something that you need to address in the way that you are teaching. And Professor Khalil has a very nice presentation later on speaking about the specifics and things of that sort. Develop formative plans based on written student feedback and document the effort. So most of the time, and here is something that goes behind the scenes. People will tell you that we don't really care much about the student perception surveys because we know they have some flaws in them. And true, they have some flaws. So they can give you some good feedback, but they have some flaws. However, when it comes time to review the P&T dossiers, and people are overwhelmed, the committee is overwhelmed with so many to look at, they tend to look at the numbers. So they tend to go back to the numbers. And when they tend to look back at the numbers, you're going to have one of two situations. Some P&T committees or committee members are going to say, no, they got very low scores in a specific place. That's bad. And stop there. And some will say, yeah, but it's not just the numbers, it's the trend in the number. Let's look at, did those scores improve over time, or did they go down over time? So be prepared for that. And the best way to be prepared for that is to actually write it in your dossier. What has happened that time when you got low scores? How did you use that as a formative feedback to improve your teaching or your design in the next semesters and so on? So always do that with yourself at the end of the semester or at the end of the year. Sit down, look at all those reviews you got, and reflect on them and give yourself a plan. How are you going to take every one of those constructive feedback? How is it going to be reflected on your syllabus or activities or teaching methods for the next semester? And document that so that you are ready to use it when you submit your dossier. Utilize university resources. Some universities have very nice entities that are focused on the science of teaching or technology, use of technology in teaching and so on. Go and talk to them and see how they can help you. And learn about learning itself, learn about teaching, the pedagogy, the science about doing the learning and doing the teaching. And be passionate about your activities. And finally, outreach. Do not overcommit at the beginning of your career. It's very important. And think of yourself, your ability to contribute as not a constant value, but it's actually an evolving value. So do activities that help you evolve, so that at the end, after promotion and tenure, you are in a better situation to help. So pick the activities that will help you learn, and pick activities that are going to have an impact that you care about. Have an inside and outside mentor, inside the university and outside the university. Have a documented impact of everything you do. Do things you are passionate about, and do things that you can learn from. And the very final slide I have here is, good luck. Thank you for being with us. And let us know how ASAPA can help. We have so many members on ASAPA, and we think there are more actually that we are trying to recruit and bring over. And these can be potential collaborators. You can have external mentors from, and you can interact with them. Thank you. These are my slides, and I will move it forward now to Beckry and Yasmin for anything that you would like to share, and then we can open the door for questions from participants.
Okay, Montasir, thank you so much for the comprehensive presentation. This is so beautiful, and this will save my time. I don't have much to say. So I've been serving in a PT for about 3 years right now. So I'm going to add to Montasir's presentation a couple of hints from inside. So I have only 4 points. The first one is, normally you need to look for the notification from your department chair or the school. Sometimes it's automatic in some universities and colleges. But my advice is just do it yourself. Go and search and see the timing frame for your promotion or tenure. Just do it yourself. Don't wait for somebody to notify you or tell you about the time, because sometimes you can even apply few months before the due date. So make sure that you know the timing for the process itself. So this is the first hint. Do it yourself. Don't wait for others to not notify you. The second thing is, you need to know the whole process. Get yourself familiarized with it. Number one, the timing. The second thing is, whom do you need to submit it for, and also is it the last step, or you have to do more steps in the process. So make sure that you are familiarized with the process itself. Number 3, support the information. So make sure that you fulfill all the requirements before the submission. Okay, this is very essential, because you don't want to submit something and then it's not fulfilling all the requirements. Then the committee will look at it, spend so much time. They're humans, okay? Then this is the first impression that they will take about you. So don't waste their time, because when you come the next time, they will have that in their heads, okay? So make sure that you fulfill all the requirements before you submit your application. And as Montasir mentioned, he said that don't make enemies within the school, okay? But also make sure that your students are happy. It's very essential for us as committee members to look at the student evaluation, although sometimes it's not part of the process, but it makes a huge difference, okay? Making your students happy is not just smiling, but, help them to improve their academics, help them to pass their classes, and also include a positive attitude in your classroom. And I think as Sudanese would always do. Yeah, my last point, follow up. Okay, so sometimes the process will, it goes from one level to the second level, but believe me, please make sure to follow up and keep pushing, okay? Don't wait for the decisions. They might put it, on a queue or in order, but if you push, you can get it on time. Okay, well, so these are my 2 cents, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Yasmin.
Great. Thank you, Montasir, and thank you, Yasmin. I have a few slides that I want to share. So, So I just want to show you some examples about what are the criteria used at different universities. So this is an example from our university. So we have five criteria that you work to satisfy these criteria for both for the tenure and for the promotion. So let's look at them very quickly. The first one is teaching, and I'm glad that Montasir went through this with more details. But the secret that we have here is that when we are accepted in this job or in this profession, we have no idea about teaching. We have never, except for the people who graduated from the School of Education, we have been observing people teach, but we have never learned how to create a syllabus, how to engage the students, how to prepare for lectures. So it is. So it is like somebody who have been going to the river, watching people swim, but they haven't really jumped into the river, and then they come and they throw you in the river. You're going to basically sink, right? So this is an area that you should be aware of, that there is a lot of learning to do about teaching, about pedagogy. The first time I learned about the word or heard the word pedagogy was way into my teaching. So be aware of that. Take any opportunity of workshops, short courses. I'm very glad that Professor Mohammed Khalil is going to talk to us about this, and that is really an important part of the profession. The second thing is research, and Montasir did a good job in highlighting the importance of the research, the publications, how to think about these things. We have also the next session about this. The third criteria we have is continuous update of your knowledge and skills. You are expected to be continuously preparing and studying on your field, about teaching, improving your skills of teaching, checking the most recent advances in your field and profession. Criteria number 4 is contribution to student growth. Not only in the classroom, in the lectures, but also involving students in research, student clubs, and participating in providing students with different opportunities, and tracking their progress. The third criteria we'll have is the service to university and the community. And as Montasir mentioned earlier is that you don't want to spend, especially in the first 5 years, you don't want to spend a lot of time on this, because you can include your participation in conferences as a service to the community, because this is your community. This is your community of the community in your field. So as long as you are going to conferences, presenting, participating in the discussions, that is also as a service to the community. So you don't have to do a lot of things about, reaching out to the companies in the areas, is spending time. You could do that later on. So the most important thing here then is documentation. You have to be aware of the criteria used in your school. You have to document everything you do, because you're gonna, at the end of the year, at the end of every year, you're gonna address all these criteria. And we're busy, we're teaching, we're doing research. So sometimes at the end of the year, you forget. So you want to create the dossier as you're going on. The other things that are hidden things beyond the criteria, as Montasir mentioned, is that people will also see, to give you tenure, that is a big commitment. So people in the department and the college want to see whether, are you a team player? Do you have the personality that fits the department, or fits the college, or fits the university? So these are things that are not clearly stated in the criteria, but you want to be aware of. And I think Montasir mentioned some good examples of these. This is all I have for now, and then I think we're going to open it to this discussion.
Thank you very much, Beckry, and thank you very much, Yasmin. I see Professor Khalil has his hand up, so please go ahead, Mohammed.
Yeah, thank you for the comprehensive information. One thing that I would like to share, I've been in this committee for too long now. So sometimes the applicant, they don't know the criteria very well, and that's going to be problematic. Now, even if you are a teaching faculty, right? It's still, they're going to evaluate you in the teaching, the scholarship, and service, the three main domains. Now, although they might ask you to teach 80%, you have to be very careful, because at the end, they can promote you without a scholarship. So you have to pay attention to that. The scholarship is a key. Without a scholarship, you cannot get promoted, even if your teaching is 80% or most of what you do is teaching. So this is why sometimes it is advisable for those who are just mainly do teaching. There is the intention that, okay, you can create a scholarship from your teaching, and then how you can do that, and that will be like another discussion that will be valuable to some of our members here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mohammed. That's a great point to make. Okay, we have about 10 minutes of questions. We have a question on the chat. Can you comment on universities that are adding a second tenure process after 6 years from the original tenure? This adds to the bad, even though it is not as difficult as the first pass. Yes, that's absolutely can add to the bad, because the tenure is intended to protect the faculty so that they can teach what they feel is the right things to teach, so that they're not threatened by political aspects, they are not threatened by any other influence from anywhere. So adding another review for the tenure is taking that protection away. Now, I'm not sure how many universities are doing that. I see a lot of talks about, threats to tenure and things that might happen and all of this. But so far, the way we have it at Virginia Tech, at least, is that it only is triggered, this post-tenure reviews, they call it. It's only triggered if, like, you disappear or something and you're not doing your job at all. So they get to that second round. Any other panelists would like to comment on that?
Who want to comment about the thing that you already also mentioned, Montasir, is that we come to this field of academy thinking that this is really highly intellectual people are smart, they are cooperative, but be aware that it's really a vicious field. There are many people who are very competitive. They don't want people to shine over them and things like that. So it is not as benign as we think it is when we come to it. It's there is a lot of viciousness in it. But also be aware. So for example, in our reviews, all the faculty in the department will go through the dossier, and they have to write a comment. So if they if they choose not to write any comments, then they cannot at the when you're coming to submit your application for tenure, they cannot just say no, I don't approve of the tenure, because they have to show through these 5 years that they have been asking, for example, you to do better on this, or that they didn't like that. They have to have a record of the fact that that support their disapproval. So this is something that is done in our university. You want to make sure you understand what is the process at your university.
Okay, if I can add a little bit to what has been already said, for non-tenure faculty member, so the evaluation, the annual evaluation, and the criteria that they're going to use evaluating your teaching, evaluating your scholarship, or evaluating your service, that is going to be for two purposes: for promotion, and also at the same time for renewal of your contract. Now, those who are non-tenure, some of them are in annual contract, some of them are in 3 years contract, or maybe sometime 5 years contract. So it is still, it's going to be very important to pay attention to your scholarship, your teaching, and your service.
Thank you, Mohammed. Do we have any other question? Yes, so we have our other executive committee members have joined, and they are going to be, some of them are going to be moderating next talks, and some of them are going to be panelists as well. So we're going to introduce them in the next sessions as they come in. But I see Nada and Nada, Khalafullah Bushara. Great.
Also, Montasir, somebody is asking about putting these slides and information somewhere that they can access.
Yes. Yeah. So we are recording the whole session, and we're going to have that on our website under the event link, and under the video, we're going to have the resources that we have mentioned during these sessions. So thank you all for attending. We have about 3 minutes now to the next session about research. So it's kind of a continuation. The whole today, as I mentioned earlier, the whole today workshop is fitting into that promotion and tenure process, research, teaching, and outreach. The next session is going to be moderated by Professor Abdel-Magid here. So we'll give you a 3 minutes break before the next session, and we're continuing in the same link over here. Thank you all for attending.
Okay. Okay, I think we can start the next session on research. Let me share my screen here. All right, so this session is about research, one of the very important criteria in the tenure and promotion aspect, and also in the field of academy. So I have with me presenting in this session is Montasir Abbas and Dr. Nada Eissa. I will start by just going over some slides about the the general aspects of research, and then Montasir and Nada will also chip in after me. So let's see what are the definitions of research. One is that research is a systematic quest for undiscovered knowledge. Okay, so as human, we have, it is just inborn in us just to seek what is out there. Why are we here? How did we come here? What is going on? What are the physical phenomena around us, and so on? So there is always yearning for that. Research is also about answering unanswered questions or creating what does not currently exist. Research is usually described as pure research or applied research. What is pure research? Pure research is gaining knowledge for the sake of knowledge, just for knowledge's sake. People just want to learn, just for and pursue more knowledge about a certain phenomena in nature or in human behavior or animal behavior. Applied research, on the other hand, is performed to solve specific practical problems. But there is always significant overlap between pure research and applied research. So for example, pure research can lead to also applied or lead to solving certain problems, and applied research might also lead in discovering new theories. So there is always this overlap, but you want to just be aware and cognizant of which area are you interested in. Research projects. So you want to you got this job in this profession, and you want one of your responsibilities is to do research. So you can either continue what you have been doing in your graduate school projects or your postdoc projects. So here you have already some proven credibility with a list of publications. So you can continue on things that you discovered that need more to pursue more in that aspect of research. And then it is easier for you then to continue the publications, continue the research, and also apply for and write proposals to get grants in the continuation of that. If you want to start new investigations, then you need to establish some credibility in the field. How do you do that? You do some preliminary research, get small funding from the university, and do some preliminary research. Always try to publish a literature review paper in this subtopic or subfield. In that literature review paper, you want to identify what is the state of the art and what needs to be done, so that when you write your proposal, you can refer to this paper, refer to what is the current knowledge and what is it that you are going to add to this knowledge. And there are collaboration projects. Here you're going to seek collaboration with research centers, for example, federal labs, scholarships through the professional societies. For example, the ASAPA has a fellowship to NASA or to any other of the federal labs, but also collaborate with your colleagues in the department or in the college. That is also more important, and Montasir has mentioned that in his presentation earlier. So how do we prepare for proposals? You need to work on clarifying the research ideas first to yourself. Okay, I want to do research in this field. Okay, what is it that I want to do? What is in there? Clarify that to yourself, clarify it to your partner at home, to your colleagues, and to your research group. If you have this way, you will develop a clear idea about what is it that you want to do. You have gotten some feedback from these people, and then you can articulate this only if you run it by people who you trust, who will give you feedback. So articulate the ideas in a language that everybody can understand. If you do that, then you really have a good grasp of what is it that you want to do. Identify the objectives of the research project. Develop a plan and list of tasks that lead to achieving these objectives. You want to list the resources available to carry these tasks. And you also want to list the resources that you need to perform the research, because these are all going to go in the proposal. You showing what you have adds to your credibility to perform this research, but also showing what you need. That is what you're going to include in the budget, for example. Always treat requests for proposals carefully, and you want to match the objectives of your projects with the funder's interest, right? So places like the Department of Energy, they have certain things that they are interested in. It is in their plans, so you want to show that your project addresses this. And the proposal is basically a story. So you want to create a convincing story in brief and measured words, right? So you have a certain number of pages. So you want to be articulate, brief, and choose your words carefully. Prepare the timeline and the budget for the project. So these are the elements that you will need to consider and address in preparing for the proposal. The funding agents, you want to study the funding agents carefully. You want to work with the grant office in your school about identifying funding agents. Just show them the type of research you're doing, and they could do the search for you. Who would be interested in funding this, and where should you apply? You always want to start with the National Science Foundation, and by the way, the National Science Foundation has this program called Accelerating Research through International Network to Network Collaboration. So if you want to collaborate with a university in Sudan, for example, you can look at this program and establish the connections first, and then you can submit a proposal. The National Institute of Health, NIH, NASA, DOE, DOD, etc. There's a lot of funders out there. As I mentioned earlier, read the request for proposal very carefully and follow it carefully. So read the request for proposal as if you are reading a technical paper. You have to really understand, and these are written very well, very carefully. So you want to highlight almost every sentence, and so that you can address each of these in your proposal. One more important thing is you want to call the program director to clarify any ambiguity. So, sometimes these are written. For example, NSF used to base their criteria on something called intrinsic knowledge. So what do they mean by that? So you can it's a good idea to call the program director, prepare your questions to them, even on things that you understand. You might ask more questions. And then as you work on the proposals, you can call them again for more clarification. Because say, for example, they don't list like the amount of funds you can ask for. So you can ask, is there a limit? My budget is now about $2 million. Is that within your limits? So the more communication you have with the program director, the more they will remember you when the review committee have your proposal and your name. And that is a good thing. So don't be shy about that. Conducting the research, and Montasir did an excellent job earlier about this. Most of these points were already mentioned by Montasir, but you want to recruit competent students and staff to work with you, because you want to succeed, and you will succeed only by with people who are motivated, are smart, are competent. You know that they will help you achieve your objectives. Follow your plans. Train students on reading technical papers. Don't assume that we have gone through this in graduate school, and we labored on reading these technical papers. But don't assume that everybody has gone through this, especially new graduate students. So you want to actually have like a small workshops and show them how to read a technical paper. I have some references about this. Train them how to document their things. Is starting with an annotated bibliography, for example, how to document everything they do in the lab, how to have a journal that they're gonna refer to, and also how to write in this field, right? So there are different writing styles. So show the students that the writing style in this field is different than that other field, because you want to do this, you want to understand your audience. So these are important things that we always think, because we went through it, we think that if everybody knows it, but it's not. I mean, even now we struggle on reading technical papers. We read the paper 3, 4, 5 times. So imagine a novice student coming to this. Make the work fun for you and for your team. And actually, the pursuit of research is a lot of fun, because you are going into the unknown. So you are practicing this inherent desire in humans on learning about new things and discovering new areas, and that's a lot of fun. And show that you are excited about this, and you want to make your group as excited. Focus on creating new knowledge or solving this specific problem. When you focus on this, you will obtain the other aspects, the credibility, the ability to write papers and publish papers. Also create a good assessment plan, so you can evaluate what you and your students are doing as you are moving on. Share and disseminate your findings, and this is what Montasir referred to earlier. You want to be internationally recognized, or nationally recognized, or recognized in your field. So publish your discoveries, your papers, patents in any format, presentation in conferences. Look ahead for new directions. As you're working on the project, you're going to think about offshoots of that projects, and how to apply for funding for this aspect of the project or the new projects. Always brainstorm and consult with colleagues that you trust, as Montasir mentioned earlier. These are some references. The first reference is about the research and pursuit of research. The second is about ethical, how to be ethical in performing research and how to convey that to your students. And the last three about how to engage your students and how to teach them about reading technical papers and so on. So this is what I have, and I will then give the opportunity for my colleagues to continue, and we will take questions and comments later on. Montasir, you are muted.
Yeah, thank you very much. This was really informative. Thank you.
Sure.
I'm gonna share my slides. If that's okay with you, Nada, I'll go now. And then okay. So I'll share my slides quickly, and I think they are kind of building on what you've said as well. So thank you for that. I want to share some key points, and it's not really based on the few millions, whatever that I got funded for, but it's for the tens of millions I got rejected for. and it's a funny story. One time we were in a workshop, ITE workshop, and I was talking to one of my colleagues. We were sitting in the dinner area, and we were talking about research funding. And then he said, like, the first 1 million is really the difficult one. And I said, yeah, once you get the first million, then, it's easier. And then we noticed that people are looking at us. They think that we are millionaires. They didn't know we're just talking about research funding. But so the key points, one of the lessons that I've learned. So research is funded to address a gap in knowledge, as you said, Beckry. So we have to remember that it is not funded for us to learn something. There is a difference, right? Sometimes we are not aware of what is going on in a certain field. We get excited about it. We want to do research in it. But the tax money is not going to pay for us to learn something. We should do that legwork first, that preliminary work first. And then we want to do research that will help everybody learn something new. And also Beckry talked about the ethical considerations, and so there was a reference there that I think people who read it will be useful. But just also, we need to remember that if we are doing any research that has human subjects in it, we need to do IRB and IRB approvals, and that might take time. So it links to that timetable for your research activities. You need to allocate enough time for that. Collaborate with active team members. I've had my fair share of situations where we seek collaborators and we find some people who seem to have done some work in certain area, and then you realize later that they are not active anymore, not that much. So you end up doing a lot of work yourself, and sometimes the assistant professors might do more work. So you might want to hit that sweet spot between late assistant professor to associate professors for active period in their career, and you go for full professors for the nuggets of knowledge that you might get from them in your project. You just have to have the right expectations. And your funding success is based on two factors: intellectual merit and broader impacts. These are from the National Science Foundation language, but it also applies for everything we do, really, whether it's funding or publications. It has to have intellectual merit in it, and it has a broader impact. It reminds me of that funny story when they say, Harun al-Rashid, when somebody came to him and said, he threw a needle into another needle, and it goes always into that hole. And then the story goes that Harun says, okay, give him 100 golden piece and 100 lash. He said, like, why the lashes? And said, well, the 100 golden pieces for your talent, the 100 lashes are for wasting your talent into something that is not useful. So we have to think about the broader impact of what we're doing. Why are we doing this research? We are convincing the funding agencies that it is useful at the end of the day. If you get rejected for some reason, read the rejection letter. I have learned from my experience. I wrote a proposal one time to NSF, and I thought I've done a great job on it. That's what I thought. And then I got rejected. I was really depressed. I didn't read it. I didn't even read it. So I was like, okay, got rejected. And then I read it maybe like 7-8 months later on. And I found that at the end, it was saying, you know, they just ran out of money. And it is strongly encouraged to resubmit it the next time. And the next time has already passed the deadline. So I actually contacted the program manager. And she said, I told you to resubmit it. So I resubmitted the year after and got funded after that. But it was one of those things, you know, yeah, be depressed for a little bit, but come back and read the details and see what is going on. It might be just a matter of, you know, it might be a good opportunity to do it again. Some pointers. Use an app. I use Good Notes. That's an app on an iPad that I use to write my notes. Write your novel ideas when you have them. And the reason is, you know, instead of writing it on paper, well, first of all, if I write on paper, I can't read my handwriting again. And I can't search it. But in this app, it actually has pretty good handwriting recognition. It's amazing that it can read my handwriting when I cannot read it. But it's searchable. So I have different folders, a SAPAA folder, research folder, different projects folder, everything. Whatever I write and highlight, and I write next to it, for example, idea. I can go in the app and write idea. It searches and brings me every idea that I wrote. So I can quickly go back to them when I need them. So that's the use of technology that might be useful. Make it easy to learn and find gaps in the literature. Use a referencing system. EndNote, everybody knows probably what EndNote is. It's easy to organize your references and make sure that they follow the format for the different journal or agencies that you're sending it to. But my key finding was Citavi, and I encourage everybody to look at Citavi. It's a knowledge management software, not just reference management. You can put all your PDFs in it, you're reading them, you're highlighting certain aspects, and you can classify them. Like, so for example, you can reference a certain part of the paper and say this is related to education, for example. And as you are reading and highlighting, and later on, it can export everything that's related to education from all these different references and have the reference attached to it. It saves a lot of time. It helps you organize your thought. Zotero and Mendeley have similar features. Mendeley has some social network aspect to it. So you can see what other people are reading and you can suggest things for them to read and so on. In this day and age, I think everyone should be looking at Citavi, Zotero, and Mendeley and collaborate using them. Synthesize, do not just summarize so that you can identify gaps. So I tell my students, if you get into the habit of reading at least a paper every week for leisure, and you're using it in Citavi, for example, and you can highlight the major things on it, you can develop a very good synthesis that you can use in your dissertation or thesis. But it also could be used for proposals and so on. Keep track of your summaries and documents for future use. Again, that's going to be easier if you're using one of those knowledge management systems. And there are some web tools that can be very helpful, like researchrabbit.com. I have the link over here. If you click on that, you can look at a paper, and it will tell you every paper that referenced that paper and every paper that was referenced by that paper, and all the authors in the paper and what they have written other than this paper. And so it's pretty good way to track different ideas and different field and learn quickly about the field. Tell you another funny story. One time I wrote a proposal, there was a call coming out from a DOT, and I had no idea about the subject, quite frankly. But I had some time and I thought like, okay, a day I'm gonna write a proposal to it. Of course I got rejected. I mean, you can't get funded by one day work, right? But the funny thing is I used Citavi and I organized the knowledge that I had. And the comment that I received was, it was impressive how much he knows about the subject. I didn't know much about the subject, but just using Citavi to organize the knowledge and to write it in such a way was really done great in a very short time. So it's really something that I recommend people use. Like it or not, it's a salesman skills or saleswoman skills that we need to develop in terms of getting funding. And remember that you are selling something to get funding. But the question is, what are you selling? Are you selling the idea? Are you selling the new methodology, the novel methodology that you came up with? Are you selling your expertise and track record? Or are you selling a utility? And each one of those categories is the right one for a specific audience. So there is no one way to win a grant. You have to read your audience and see what is it that they're looking for. And we have to remember that. If you're selling a methodology where they are expecting utility, or you're selling an idea where they want the track record, it's like you could be the best musician, but you're getting into a dancing competition, so you're not going to get it, basically, right? So unless you're doing it for fun, make sure that you are targeting the audience. The other question is, do you need the funding to do the work, or do you need the work to get the funding? And it's an interesting aspect, because I've realized myself that there are certain things that I don't need funding to do. And I'll show a quick example on the next slide. Like if I get funded, I'm not sure if I'll get the student who can do that work anyway. So that kind of work, better do it yourself and don't wait. We are trained to wait until we get the funding before we do the work. And sometimes we're just limiting ourselves. Some work we can do without waiting. But then you can invest on that, because you're going to have some preliminary work. Then you could be thinking about, now I have a hammer, where are the nails? And how can I get funded to pursue this further? Because you need funding for the promotion and tenure. So even if you don't need it to do the work, you need to show the record. And this is Tina Turner. What funding got to do with it? I just put her here because you have to have fun, like Beckry said, in everything that you do. Do the preliminary work. Don't be tempted to wait until you get funded before you do something. And serve as a reviewer. That is very useful. I actually stayed away from NSF submissions over the last 2 years intentionally. Well, I had a lot of work to do. I wanted to finish doing first. But I invested all that time in being a reviewer. I reviewed so many. I think, I started developing a knack for reviewing and so on. And it's one thing that's interesting that I noticed also. When you write your work, it's better to write it early on before the deadline. You stay away from it, come back and read it again as a reviewer. And read it when you're happy and write your notes, and go and come back when you're angry somehow and read it again, because that will give you the perspective of somebody who is angry. And it's almost guaranteed that the panel will have somebody who's grumpy at least. And it's good to see the point that will come from these reviewers. Remember, it's a peer-reviewed most of the time, and peer review has certain elements in it that, as I mentioned earlier, you need to shoot for the right level. That's one thing, and it's related, of course. Again, if you are selling an idea, but the panel is full of ideas, you're not going to be impressing them. If you are selling a methodology to mathematicians, they are probably not going to be that impressed. If you are an engineer, they already have their mathematical things developed. So you have to consider the audience and sell something. And sell is not I don't want to sound like a salesperson really in this case, but you remember that you want to convince them that they want to fund you. The other thing with the peer review, the reality is most of the time reviewers are trying to make a decision in half an hour or 20 minutes for your proposal. So we spend a lot of time writing it, and we forget that when the reviewers are reading it, they're not sipping pina colada and sitting on the beach and having all the time in the world. They are probably on the airplane coming to the panel, or they are sitting and underestimating how many proposals they need to submit the day before. So they are reading very quickly. So you have to really hit the key points and make them, like Beckry said, concise, to the point, and make it easy for them to advocate for you in the panel, why they think you should get funded. What happens in reality is, and especially with NSF panel, is that when people read the proposal, they develop a mental background about is this a good proposal or not? And then they try to justify that in a good way, like, yeah, this is really a great proposal. I'm impressed, but how do I sell it now to the panel, other panel members? You need to make it easy for them to sell it for them. And then develop professional relationships, have a good network that helps, and don't wait to the last minute. I do realize that in a sense, we're like, don't be Sudanese about it. Don't wait to the last minute, because Murphy's Law, if something can go wrong, it will go wrong. And you never know, like you might have a visit the last day, and it's like, you don't have time now to submit, and because you have guests and other things like that, or God forbid you got sick or something happens. Try to get the proposal done early on and benefit from the reviews that your university might actually provide some resources for. I'll just go over this very quickly. I showed this slide in one of the webinars, some of the work that we have done, this work, and Awad is going to talk later from Zahara for education. We didn't need funding for this. This is a work that we did because we were both passionate about it. The stuff over here on this, Oud and improvisation and using the sound of traffic responding back to me, playing with the control and using music theory and control theory and so on. I only got this funded internally at Virginia Tech. I didn't get it funded yet at the national level, but I didn't have to wait for it. And if I get funded for it, or am I going to get a student who's going to do that? It's easier for me to do it myself. And some of the other stuff as well. This is all of these optimization and simulation and visualization and those kind of things. This one was not funded. Again, I was just doing it myself. So sometimes you get funded to do simple stuff, and sometimes you get funded to do advanced things, but sometimes you just have to do them. And if you are passionate about it, do it. That's what you are in the game for. Have fun with it, like Beckry said. The last thing I had here is to collaborate with ASAPA. We need to take this opportunity and mention again that we have this database. We have developed this year within the ASAPAUSA.org website that you can identify potential collaborators. You can search by keyword in a specific field, and it will give you who are the people working on that field. So you might want to get in touch with them. The idea would be you can have possible resources, share resources, co-author papers, and you can also use it as a mentorship and potential graduate advising and funding and so on. And also not to forget the seed grant that we have launched from the website. If you go to the main site, you will see the collaborative proposal, submissions. It's on rotated basis. So even if you miss the deadline, go ahead and submit anyway. We're going to keep evaluating. We have also a fund campaign for it. We're going to publish more of that and try to get more funding for it. And hopefully that is going to improve research opportunities as well. So these are the slides from my side. Thank you. I hope I didn't go too long. Nada, the ball is in your court now.
Thank you, Montasir. So I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to add because they covered so well all of the issues. And I think it'd be useful to hear from everyone, but I do want to add a couple of things to what was said. The first is that you should contact the program officer for any kind of grant that you're applying for. One thing, they'll tell you if your ideas are suitable or not, and they can save you quite a bit of time. And the other is that as you get to know them, they sometimes will reach out to you to ask about your interest in specific proposals. Right? So developing that relationship can save you a lot of time. The other thing I would say is to see if you can get sample proposals for the narrative at least, whether from your colleagues or from the agency. I'm not sure if agencies share them, but they might have some that are, where they've gotten the authorization to share. And it could be your colleagues wherever you are. It could be reaching out to outside of your direct network. That could be very useful for understanding how to frame the proposal. And then on writing the narrative, what I found is that a lot of times ideas in my head are very scrambled. And the process of writing actually helps clarify the ideas. So you should see that as part of just writing out ideas is part of developing the proposal, and share drafts with people that you're connected to, because they can give you feedback on things that you may have missed, or especially reframing. I found that when you get a fresh set of eyes on a proposal, the most useful kind of feedback that you can get is how to reframe if you're not approaching it in the best way. It's not necessarily about changing any of your ideas, but it's about how you target those ideas in terms of who you reach out to. So I think those are the 3 points that I would add, but like I agree with everything that was said, and I thought it was very clear, very well said. So I think the best thing is to kind of see if we have questions and respond to them. So I'll give it back to you, Beckry. I think you're navigating this session.
You're muted, Beckry.
Sorry. Thank you, Neda, and thank you, Montasir, for the good presentations. We can open the floor for questions. I have a question on would members share on your website what topics they seek collaborators? The purpose is not to swamp everybody. So Montasir, maybe you can answer this question, because you have been collecting or asking members to write what they are working on, and so the questioner is asking, should we just contact these people on any idea that we have, or do they actually list what they are working on and what do they want to collaborate?
Excellent question, and again, it's a good chance to mention what we have on the website. So as you see, we have collected your information after we send that email about opt-out if you would like. Otherwise, we'll have the list. We're so happy that we have so many members in there. One of the things that I want to mention is that if you go to the website, there is a place where you can log in and log out. So over here, I'm just going to log out now, and I can log in as my alter ego. This is me as a member, not as a webmaster. So I'm logged in here now. You can go to membership, update your information. And if you click on that, you have this for the front end for the database that shows what we have for you in the database now. And you can update your bio description. So you can write in it like willing to collaborate or are looking for collaboration in a certain field. You can, or otherwise just update your bio to show where your areas of expertise is, your area of strengths and interest. Once you do that and you're going to submit, everything is updated. You can even change your photo and all of that. Once you do this, and if you just go back to anywhere in the website, if you are searching, like I mentioned, like you can press S and you're searching, or you can just go over here and search. And like I mentioned last time in transportation, for example, let's say you want to collaborate with somebody in transportation, it's going to give you the members who have listed transportation in their field. And it also tells you if there were events about that subject, if there's any general information, initiative, and so on. So let's go to Yasser, for example, and then you're back to his profile. You have a ways to connect with him over email. He has your website and so on. And then you can do that communication with him. So this is one way. So if anyone is not is interested in a specific field, please go in and update your information, and you can write it there. I'm interested in collaboration on so and so. I think this will take a little bit time to make everyone familiar with using it and getting into the habit of going there and communicating. But once it starts going, we can really do a lot of good things with it.
Good. Thank you, Montasir. That was great. Another question I have is, wouldn't your research office help you seek example proposals? You may, of course, contact the PIs. I think for organizations and agencies like NSF, they do publish the funded proposals, so you can access that. Your grant office might not be able to have proposal in every field to share with you, but they will lead you to places like that where are the funded proposals published by NSF or any other agencies. Also, as Montasir mentioned, I think I cannot overemphasize the importance of becoming a reviewer, and the way you do this is you volunteer your services. You contact a program director at NSF and put your name and email address and tell them that you would like to be a reviewer, because they are usually looking for people like that. Early on my career, I used to actually go to NSF. Any opportunity to go to Washington, D.C., I would just go to NSF and harass these program directors, and I got in the list of reviewers in the major program. That so it is good to be aggressive is in the first few years. Also ask your program officer to give workshops to you and your group and your colleagues about writing proposals, how to look for things, and so on. Anybody else want to comment on that?
Yeah, I can just say, I think NSF would just encourage us to contact the reviewer, the PIs to get the proposals directly. But there is also the FOIA, Freedom of Information Act, that you can use to get a proposal, any proposal, and the PI will be asked to redact anything confidential. But it is not considered a good collegiality to do that. It's kind of, you're forcing someone to give you their own thing. And some PIs say, you know, if you just come to them, they will give you the proposal anyway. The other important thing or interesting things to do, look at the NSF website and see who got funded a lot. These are the people who are veterans, you know, and then collaborate with them. The best way would be to say, like, let's write proposal together. You have a certain idea, it's an interdisciplinary thing, and they will, you know, mentor you and add pointers to you and to your proposal. And that's a win-win situation.
Yeah, I don't have much to add. I think that's correct, but I just did a search online for sample NSF proposals, and there's a bunch of links and sites where you can actually get them. And the question about whether the grants office would provide it was a great one, because there are several that are posted by the grants offices of various universities, but there's also resources on the NSF website. So I think that is definitely an option.
Okay, I don't see any other questions. Let me check here. Can you please send the link to the association homepage, Montasir?
Sure, I will write it down now.
Yeah. Somebody said NSF publishes abstracts only. So yeah. So if you read the abstract and you know the PIs, you can contact them. Ahmed Makki said, how do you become a proposal reviewer? Can you elaborate on the process? As I mentioned, I used to go to the program director. His name was John Scalzi. I remember. I harassed him so much that he got me on, and fund actually ended up funding my one of my proposals. So yeah, try to check your grant officer, contact program directors, and volunteer your services and your email.
So one other thing I just posted, on the NSF website, for example, there's a webpage where they give you direct instructions on how to become a reviewer, and why you should become a reviewer. So that's really the easiest way to figure it out. And all they're asking is basically just send an email to introduce yourself to the program officer.
Great. Okay. This is all the questions I have. I think it is almost 1 o'clock now, and we should move to the next session. So probably a few minutes break, maybe five minutes break.
Yes.
And then we will come to hear from Professor Mohammed Khalil.
Yes, excellent. Thank you very much. See you guys in 5 minutes. Let me introduce Professor Khalil, who is going to give us this nice upcoming talk. He's a professor of anatomical sciences at the University of South Carolina, the School of Medicine in Greenville. And he has received multiple degrees. He has a bachelor in vet medicine from University of Khartoum, a master in anatomy from the University of Khartoum, and another master in anatomy from Tuskegee University. And he has a master in education technology from Purdue University. And he has a PhD in anatomy from Purdue University. So three masters and a PhD after the bachelor. He has received many awards for teaching excellence at the school, university, and at the regional and national level. And just to name a few, he has a Golden Apple Award, the Golden Peach Award, and several student awards for excellence in preclinical education. He has a Garnet Apple Award for teaching innovation for the university's most exceptional faculty at the University of South Carolina. He had the Career Educator Award from American Association of Medical Colleges, the Southern Group on Education Affairs' highest recognition and most prestigious award. And he has the Alpha Omega Alpha Robert Glasser Distinguished Teacher Award from the American Association of Medical Colleges. So lots of awards have entertained his presentations before. I think it's really great, and I cannot be thankful enough for Prof. Khalil to give us this presentation. So please take it from here, and we'll be happy to participate. Thank you, Mohammed.
Thank you, Montasir, for the introduction. And let me see if I can share my PowerPoint. Okay. So do you see the slide, the first slide?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So today I'm going to provide some kind of awareness about the principle of instructional design, because this topic is very broad, and I would like just to provide the foundational aspect of it, because we don't have the time to go into detail on every aspect of the principle of instructional design. So to start, this is what we're going to do. We're going to define the instructional design, and we're going to explain and compare basic related learning theory, and we're going to discuss information processing model as an example of one of those theory, and also discuss the benefit of using instructional design models, and explain and provide example of instructional design models. So that's what we're going to do through the presentation. Now, I would like to get your answer on those questions. We have a poll that you can select which of those that best describe you related to the experience of using instructional design models. So please answer the information in the poll. Okay, so I'll give you additional few minutes to participate before I close the poll. Okay, so let's continue. See, now if you can see, we have 43%. They selected the first description, I'm familiar with instructional design principle, and I use idea model to develop an instruction. And we have 29%. Some of them, they have some idea. Some of them, they don't have idea at all. Okay, so we're gonna go and look at the we're going to look at exactly what's happening, and hopefully we can provide some information and have good discussion, so we clarify one of the important aspect of instructional design. Okay, so the question is going to be, to start with, what is instructional design? Okay, I'd like you just to think about it, you know, try to have an answer for yourself before we can share the answer. Okay, so instructional design, the systematic and reflective process of translating principle of learning and instruction into plans for instructional materials, activities, information, resources, and evaluation. So simply, instructional design is the creation of instruction based on the science of learning. Just to simplify, is to provide a framework that can guide the development of instruction based on the principle of learning. Okay, so now I have another question for you, and I would like you to answer the poll that will ask about how would you define learning? If you please participate, how you define learning? Okay, give you a few more seconds to answer the question. So here there is no right answer or wrong answer, but I would like to see the way you see, or the way you see learning, how you define it yourself. Okay, so let's end so we can move forward. Okay, so what we have here, 50% they say acquiring new behavior or changing behavior, and 33% changing information stored in memory, and 17% search for meaning. Okay. The way I asked that question, because that would lead us to the definition of the learning theory. So I would like you just to think about your answer here, and I would like you to see what theory that you feel matching your thinking. So we have three major theories: the behaviorism, the cognitivism, and the constructivism. For the behaviorism, that concentrate on what is observable learner behavior and reinforcement. So with this one here, it's mainly something that you do, and you can condition it with either positive or negative enforcement. And what I mean by that, if you remember back in the day, some of the teachers, they came to the classroom with the stick on their hands. So those are the behaviorists. Okay? The behaviorist theory mainly facilitate knowing what. So it's mainly related to competency-based education. So you would like to see the behavior and then you evaluate the behavior for the learner. The second one, the cognitivist theory, does focus on what is happening to the learner inside. So how information is mentally processed and stored. So it's not like you're going to see the behavior. They are interested in what's happening inside the brain. So mainly this facilitate knowing what, and mainly is being used to teach problem-solving tactics. The last one, which is the constructivist theory, this is mainly based on the idea that the knowledge is constructed by learners through reflection on experience. And mainly this promotes reflective practice and collaboration. So the thing about this theory here, the meaning that is being created by the individual learner might not be the same meaning for all of them. So with that, then, how we're going to use this is going to be, we have to be careful about that, because if we are interested to look, for example, and evaluate how the surgeon do certain procedure, which is competency-based education, this theory might not fit there, but it might fit in order to use it for group teaching and searching for new meanings. So these are like the basic thing of the three learning theory. And here I would like to just give you like a comparison between the three of them. So if you are a behaviorist, you're gonna define learning as acquisition of new behavior. If you are a cognitivist, then for you, learning is what's happening inside the brain, or a reorganization of the cognitive structure. If you are a constructivist, then learning for you is search for meaning. Okay? Now, for each of those theories, the learner role in the behaviorist theory is passive, but it is active in the cognitivist and constructivist theory. Example of some of the teaching method related to those theory for the behaviorist: the lecture, simulation, demonstration, or program instruction. See, for right now, when everybody was talking about, we would like the learner to be active participant in the learning process, okay? And we would like to stay away from them being passive, so that everybody thinking now about the student-centered teaching rather than the teacher-centered teaching. So with that, then you move from the behaviorist approach to either the cognitivist approach or the constructivist approach. So for cognitivist, problem solving, concept mapping, advanced organizer, those are some of the methods related to that. And for the constructivist theory, there is reflection, role modeling, problem-based learning, and collaborative learning. Now, how you assess in each of those theories, the strategy that you use for the behaviorist approach is usually criterion reference assessment, multiple choice question, and recall items. For the cognitivist approach, essay, written report, and project. But for the constructivist, sometimes those guys, they go to the extremes and they can say like, okay, we don't need grades. So peer grading and review, that will do it in order to assess the change or the search for meaning that represent the learning. So those are the basic three theory. There are many other theory that are extension of those three theory. But if you know those three theory, it's not going to be difficult for you to understand the other one. Okay, see now, I'm going to share with you one of the theory that's try to explain what's happening internally. So here I'm referring to which one of those theory? The cognitivist theory, right? So those guys, they came up with the information processing model, how we process the information. So they say from the environment, we use our senses, we get that input, and the first thing that will receive that input will be the sensory memory. So we can hear something, we can see something, smell something, touch something, and so on. Okay? The important part here is the attention. If there is attention, then that information will be moved for further processing in the working memory. If not, it will be forgotten. Now, the important things that we need to know about what's happening in the working memory is limited in capacity and in duration. So the duration, you keep the information there. This is your conscious memory. They call it conscious memory. Sometimes they call it short-term memory. The duration is like 30 seconds. The capacity, I can give you some examples so you can feel like, okay, yeah, it is limited in capacity. So for example, if I ask you, what is 10 by 10? Immediately you're gonna tell me, oh, that's 100. If I multiply 10 by 10, that's 100. Okay. Now I'd like you to multiply 144 times 137. You see? Now you cannot do it. So the capacity is limited. Okay? Now, when we say the limited in duration, limited in capacity, so how the learner then keep the information in the working memory? So there is processes here that help the learner to keep that information in the working memory, which is called the maintenance rehearsal. Okay, maintenance rehearsal simply means rote memorization. You know, you see some of the students, they just keep reciting the information again and again and again, try just to memorize it, just rote memorization. Okay, now, that is not going to be helpful for the learner. And for us as a teacher, we should not encourage something like that. Because what's going to happen, yeah, they can do this rehearsal to keep it for more, for additional time, but after a while, it's going to disappear. So there is no use of the student trying to do that. The important part that the student they need to do is to get involved in elaborative rehearsal. So elaborative rehearsal simply means understanding. And how that is going to happen? You link the new information to an old existing information in the long-term memory. The long-term memory is not limited at all. It's not like the working memory. Okay? So that will help in coding that information. The information here, you can use it to process the information in the working memory more efficient. And this is sometimes it is important because if you would like to teach new information, if you provide some idea about what the topic is going to be in a simple way, so the student, they can encode it in their long-term memory. When you talk about more about it in the class, they use that information to process the new information. It makes it a little bit easier for them. So now let's try to see exactly what's happening here because this is important. Now, in the working memory, there is two processors with a central executive. One that processes the visual information, the other one that processes the auditory information. And now you can think about, if I would like to present the information to my student, do I need to use one side or do I need to use both? Which one is going to be easy for the student? Okay, so now what's going to happen if the student, they start elaborative rehearsal, they start to try to make meaning of what they learn, to understand what's going on, there will be that communication between the working memory and the long-term memory. So that's lead to the formation of the knowledge here and the organization of the knowledge in the form of a schema. So the schema is the organization of knowledge inside the memory, okay? Now, if you start with an initial schema and then you add information to that, you are in the process of constructing a larger schema. Also, at the same time, if you practice what you learn a lot, you reach the point that you can perform the task without even concentrating. And that's what is called schema automation. So the two schema automation and construction of the schema does lead to learning. So that's, if you can see the perspective of the the cognitivist approach to learning, the cognitivist theory. Okay, so let's move on now. So why do we use an instructional design model? So if you ask yourself, okay, why we use them? If you think about it, instructional design model, they can carefully link everything involved in the learning process, the teacher, the learner, the material, and the environment. It will help you to replicate the process because you have a framework. In addition to that, that framework is scientifically based framework, is evidence-based, so it is empirical. So you can replicate the process and you can enhance based on the information that you collect from your first implementation. It is also promote effective learning because you always think about what was there in the literature or in the science of instruction and learning that will help the student learn better. You always use that through the instructional design process using those models. It's also helpful for developing focused and customized training. Now, if we are doing all that, we have effective training and we have a focused training, that's going to help with the cost of developing the training. So it is also cost effective. So it is very important now, rather than trying to develop the instruction without any guidance, we use the instructional design model as a framework or as a roadmap in developing effective instruction. Okay, now I'm going to share with you one of the model that is very popular. It's very popular because all the components and the element of the instructional design are there. So this model is called the ADDIE model. The ADDIE model is referring to analysis, A, design, D, development, D, implementation, I, and evaluation, E. So this is how the name came from. Now, in each of those phases, there is some activity happening. But if you can see here, with the design, with the analysis that you do at the beginning, you do the design, the development, the implementation, and then the evaluation, you go back and look at all these phases and make changes, and that's going to be continuous to always improve the instruction. So during the analysis, this mainly to analyze the learner and analyze the context. And also to conduct instructional analysis. The topic that you are using, that you are teaching, you have to know exactly what you would like to teach and what information that is needed in order to do that. And to find existing material, if it is available, you don't need to create it again. Now, for the design, you need to plan and write an instructional strategy. This is mainly here is about the way that you present the information and the selection of the delivery method. So then you develop the instructional content, you create a prototype, and then you create an instrument, assessment instrument. Because when you do this analysis, I'm gonna explain it more. You have to come up with the specific objective. And as soon as you identify the objective, then you need to find the question that will assess that objective. So the implementation, you deliver the instruction to the target audience. And then after that, you conduct formative and summative evaluation. This evaluation here is mainly formative because it is something continuous that you do in order to improve the instruction from year to year. So these are the basic steps or are the basic phases that will be included as a component of any instructional design model. So let me share with you another one, which is called Pick and Carry model. This one will be helpful to somebody who really try to start thinking about instructional design and how they use it, because they provide more information on what you need to do. Now, you see the analysis is here. In order to identify the goal of what you would like to teach, you do needs analysis. The needs analysis contain analysis of the content and analysis of the learner and the context. Okay? Now, so when you do that, that will help you to write your objectives. And after you write the objective, you go through developing the assessment item for those objectives, and then you come up with the way you're going to present the information, and you develop and select the material. At the end, still, you will do the evaluation, the formative one, you use it in order to revise the instruction, and the summative one to make the final judgment. Now, I'm gonna explain to you some of the aspects that I see like are important to pay attention to. Now we said here you do the need analysis to conduct the instructional and the learner and context analysis. So what's involved there? So for the instructional analysis, you need to identify the subordinate skills and identify the entry behavior. So in a way, you need to think about oh, I'm teaching this topic, what is the prerequisite for this topic? Do the learner, they have that prerequisite? Do they have that foundational knowledge? That is very important, because if they don't, then it become your instruction become very, very difficult for them. The other part is to analyze the learner and the context. You need to get to the characteristic of the target population. So you need to think about the general characteristic like male, female, age, sex, and then the background experience. All of that can contribute to the way that you select your strategy and how you interact with those type of learning. The other part, which is the context. See, I'm going to give you like an example just to simplify. If I decided that I'm going to use a small group teaching for the delivery of my content. Now, if in my institution, there is no small group, there is no small rooms that I can ask the student to go to those rooms and then get involved in that activity, then how I'm going to do that? And then also you need to think about, okay, what the culture there? Are there any support from the administrator to do those kind of learning? So all that can help for you to decide on in what way do you like to deliver the instruction. I'm going to give you some example here that can apply to anything, but I use something from my domain. So if you are teaching a topic, which is this one here, say that example here, okay, a physiologist, he will like to teach the glomerular filtration. Okay, in order to do that, then he needs to cover the determinant of the glomerular filtration rate, the renal blood flow, the control of the glomerular filtration and blood flow and autoregulation. So all these are necessary part of teaching this. Now, even with those, they are information that are necessary in order to teach this. So without the student know this, they can understand this, that you can't. So you have to teach this first in order to get to this. So this part here, this is what is your responsibility to teach. The part that is here, that's the entry behavior, that's the prerequisite, that's what the information, what kind of knowledge that the student have because they come to your class. And here we have to be very careful, because if you think about most of the students now in the classes are very diverse students. Their background might not be the same. So for example, in medicine now we have a student come from music background, some come from engineering background, history background, in addition to those who come from biological sciences background. Do you feel like everything here, those entry behavior, is it going to be the same for all of them? It is not. So we have to be very careful with that. And this is why they say like, okay, you need to do that analysis. You need to do that content analysis. Okay, so let's move forward. Now, with the development of the assessment instrument, that's we said based on identifying the specific objective. This is how we present the information, how we deliver it, okay? And here how we develop the information, the instructional material. Now, I'm going to focus mainly on the central part for the sake of time. This is the instructional strategy. And that can involve what's happening outside the class. and what's happening inside the class, and how you get the student involved in the learning process, and how you make sure that they learn the information. So the instructional strategy is very, very, very important. And if you remember what we talk about with the information processing model, and if you know like the limitation of the working memory, right? You can select certain kind of instructional strategy that will help the student to process the information better than just deliver the information without paying attention to that. Now, this is an example. If you look at what's happening here, somebody would like to teach what's happening, you know, with the triangles and the angles and how they are related and how you calculate the angles. And this question here is about finding this angle here. And if you see here, everything is explained, right? Okay. If you add all of them, is 180, right? So 180 minus this one and minus this one will give you this one, right? Okay. But you know the vertically opposite angle are equal. So this one is equal to this one. So whatever I get here, 180 minus 55 minus 45 is equal 80. Then this one is become also is going to equal 80, right? Now, if you think about what's happening here, without knowing what's happening in the working memory, you feel like, oh, I'm doing everything great. Okay. See this here. You don't need to write everything here like that. You remember what we said about you have two processors, visual processor and auditory processor. Here you overwhelm the visual processor. That's one thing. The other thing, why you would like the student to read this and go back, think about what's happening here. That's a split attention. That is going to add more to the load on that working memory. So this approach here is very easy and to the point. The first thing that you do, 180 minus 55 minus 45 is equal to 80, and then the opposite one, the vertical opposite one is going to be equal, it is 80. Very simple, straightforward. Now, if I don't know anything about memory, do you think I will think about what will be the difference between this one and this one? I might feel like, hey, I'm doing great here. No, you are not. This is a better approach than this one. And that's based on the information processing model. Okay, now, for the evaluation aspect, we have two parts, the formative evaluation and the summative evaluation. Okay? It's important to know what the difference between the two and how you use them in order to enhance the learning process. See, mainly for the formative, you can do it in many formats. If I design an instruction, for example, self-directed instruction, I can try that with one student, and then I bring a small group, and then after that, maybe the class before the next time when I implement, I make sure that, okay, the formative evaluation give me all the information that I need to improve the instruction for the student. So I think it is very important that we can see like what the difference between the two. If you think about the formative assessment, it is the assessment for learning. What does that mean? Formative assessments is going to support learning. The summative assessment, it is not going to support the learning process, but is to make judgment, is to validate and certificate. Now, if you think about the formative assessment, it has like many functions. It guides the future learning. help the students assess their own learning progress, encourage self-regulation, promote self-assessment, promote reflection, and maintain motivation and self-esteem. And I can tell you, if the student, they don't have the skills of self-assessment, that is going to be something that needs to be addressed for them, because self-assessment is very crucial for the student to perform at higher level. So in that way, then you need to think about how I'm going to use the formative assessment in order to promote learning. So the characteristic, the formative assessment, promote learning as part of teaching. It takes into account the progress of each individual learner, because that individual learner, they identified the gap in their knowledge. And then they go back and close that gap. Without the formative assessment, they cannot do that. And I always discuss with the student, is it better for you to answer questions after you study and figure out like what was the gap in your knowledge and then remediate that, you close the gap, or do you like that's to happen at the actual exam? At the actual exam, okay, whatever you get, that's going to be your score. But if you go through formative assessment, you do many questions, there's a chance for you to go and then close the gap. So you use it in that term in order for them, you promote learning, you try to assess their understanding, and that overall is going to reflect on high performance. So formative assessment is very, 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 very important. And now in our curriculum, we have weekly assessment for the student every week. Every faculty, they have to write formative question. By the end of the week, the student, they have access to those formative questions. And then they see like, okay, did I understand this material? Why I'm performing very, very bad? And actually, there is a lot of research that is done, formative assessment. You know, the performance in formative assessment is correlated with the performance in the summative assessment. So it is very, very important. Now, I end up by providing them the Merrill instructional design principle. And if you think about what's happening, we talk about those three learning theory. This guy, he did a lot of research and he looks at all the theory and everything. And he came up with, okay, if you would like to promote learning of the student, what you need to do, it has to be problem-centered. So the student, the learner, they have to be engaged in solving problem. Okay, you have to activate the knowledge that they have. You remember the schema in the long-term memory that can be used to process the information in the working memory. If you don't have that, that's going to be difficult for the student to process the new information. And you have to be careful. If you don't know that, you can overwhelm the student, and the student, they're going to hate what you are talking about. You need to demonstrate for the student the knowledge. Okay, we'd like you to do this. This is the example of it. Okay? And with that, you need to provide, okay, exercises that the student, they can apply that acquired knowledge. Not even that, you need to help the student to transfer that knowledge. So this model here summarizes like what's happening with all this theory and bring it into like a very simple steps that you can follow, and then you can make sure that your instruction help the student to learn. So by using this model, by paying attention to the science of instruction, you are helping the student to learn the material better. So with that, I will end and I welcome any question and discussion.
Thank you very much, Mohammed. That was great. Thank you. Let's see if we have any questions. So you got a question. Can you provide, in context you choose, what questions you may give at the end of 1 week for formative assessment?
Okay, remember, this is the beauty of having an instructional design model. You remember when you do the analysis at the beginning, you do the analysis in order to write your objectives, right? As soon as you write the objectives, you write with that objective assessment items. So with that, then, each of those objectives, you have items that will assess those objectives. So like, for example, if I'm teaching 1 hour, this is the way we do it right now. At least I need to provide for the student 3 questions. And those 3 questions that will ask about some of those learning objectives. Now, this is also important. You know, I like the question because that can lead us to many things that we need to think about. So sometimes the student, they don't know what is important and what is less important. Okay? They would like to study everything. No, you don't have time to do that. You cannot do that. Okay. So now how I'm going to identify the important information? Part of identifying the important information, your teacher is asking question about it. In addition to you have emphasis on it and so on. That makes sense? Okay, I hope I answered that question.
Thank you, Mohammed. We don't have any other question here.
I have a question, Montasir.
Go ahead.
Mohammed, for the formative assessment, should the teacher include a grade for that, and or is grading only should be only for the summative assessment?
Okay, that's a great question. If you're going to grade the formative, it is not formative anymore. So, because think about this way, the student, they will like any point, you know, in your assessment. So if you say like, okay, oh, we're going to give you like, even if you say like, hey, 1%, hey, that 1% for some of them is a lot. They're going to look at it like a summative kind of assessment rather than a formative assessment. The formative assessment mainly, hey, okay, we would like you to go through this question, but we are not going to punish you. We are not going to judge you. We are not going to do all that. We would like you to do that in order for you to identify the gap in your knowledge, to identify if you understand the material or not. And then you go and then you close the gap, and the more question you do, the better is going to be your performance.
All right. Thank you, Mohammed.
Thank you, Mohammed. So we have now 5 minutes until the next session starts. I think this was very informative. Thank you very much. So we'll take the 5 minutes break and then.
Montasir, can I interject here a little bit?
Sure.
We seem to be running always to the end. But we also ran to the end in the previous session, and I forgot to call on Raja to share her success stories about proposals. So I'm wondering if she's available to give us a brief presentation on the success stories about writing and obtaining grants.
Okay, I just promoted Raja to panelist, so if she's here, she can. Raja, if you unmute yourself, please.
Okay.
سلام كيفك؟
Good. كيف انتوا؟ كلكم إن شاء الله كويسين.
Alhamdulillah, great to see you.
Good to see you too. Actually, in the little time, I really don't want to take away the break time, but Beckry had asked me earlier about my current grant. I have a research experiences for teachers grant, and of course, all different grants look different. So this one, I am not doing a lot of the research. I'm actually working with other professors. Yesterday was the culmination of the summer cycle for high school teachers to come and do research. It's amazing the progress they make. You bring them in with no knowledge. Like you and your students have bachelor, master's, PhD, research, and they have none of that. And then they come and you try to bring them up to speed with the skills needed for this research. And then they have to present and you hear them talking about your field with expertise. It's really very rewarding. So that's one example. In our college, there's another research experiences for teachers grant for community college professors. So those may have PhD or not, but a different group. And then we have research experiences for undergraduates. And this last one, I am a mentor. I am not a PI or a co-PI. But for mine, I am the PI. So it's really one of the things you mentioned earlier that are very important, all the way from your talk about promotion and tenure. And we have retention too, you haven't mentioned that, like a yearly, just deciding to keep you there before you get to the tenure part. So knowing what your department requires or what even your dean expects, I think that's very, very, very important. Having a team so that you can write the grant with a team. Don't do the silo. It's really going to be, it will just, your health, your time, your frustration levels, all of that will be exaggerated if you don't have a good team. And the trusted team, like Montasir was saying, because you want to keep their secrets and they want to keep your secrets, if you want to call them that. We have, you can seek and ask. For example, we have help writing. There's not a lot of money or time, but if you tell your dean or apply that you want a chance with a grant writer helper, those people are very helpful. So they will look at your language. They will also read the requirements and make sure that you have addressed all the requirements. And our grants office helps you with samples. Like if you like one, you read the abstract NSF and you say, I like this, they contact them. I agree with Montasir, don't do the, what's the name for it? The requirement for Information Act, something like
The
you said, the FOIA, yeah. Try to contact them first or through your office and finally go for the FOIA if needed. So if you wanted me to talk about something specific I didn't talk about, you may ask me, but that's like a summary of what I wanted to say.
Great. Thank you very much, Raja.
Thank you, Raja.
Any questions?
You're welcome.
Okay, so let's take about then 2 or 3 minutes break.
Montasir,
Yes.
somebody asked about requirements to join ASAPA. So at some point, would you address that? It was back in the questions.
Yeah, I answered it. So it went to the answered question.
Thank you.
Yeah. And by the way, we have in our business meeting, we're changing the bylaws a little bit. So if that gets approved, the new requirement will basically allow associate members to be any PhD holder working in any research institution or research organization or university. So that's another thing that we're going to announce as well on the website once we have that business meeting tomorrow. All right, thank you, everyone. So I see the next speakers are lining up, and our next. So I'll maybe let's just take like 3 minutes break, and then we'll come back at 2:05, and Professor Nada Fadul will be the moderator for that session. So I will introduce her quickly, and then she will take it over from that point on. So 2:05. Oh, great. So nice to see you all here. And thank you, Nada, for stepping up and doing the moderation. I'll just introduce Professor Nada Fadul and let her handle the session. Dr. Nada is an associate professor of infection disease in the University of Nebraska Medical Center, Department of Internal Medicine, and the medical director of the Specialty Care Center. She is also the assistant dean of diversity, equity, and inclusion education programs for the UNMC College of Medicine Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. Nada is also the vice chair for ASAPA. She has done a lot of great work that we are proud of, and I'm so happy that she is here today. So Nada, the floor is yours. Please take it over from here.
Thank you so much, Montasir, for the generous introduction. I didn't update my bio, but I'm a professor starting July 1st. So I missed out on the great session because I wish that was there 2 years ago when I was struggling with application. But thank you so much for the great conference so far. I'm really proud and honored to be moderating this session. I'm going to just give a 5 minutes, set the stage about ASAPA collaboration and history and goals and purposes so that we can frame this around what ASAPA is trying to do and strive for. So I'll just go through the purposes of ASAPA as they're stated in our bylaws and what we have done so far and what we strive to do. And then I'll hand it over to Zahara as the first panelist to kind of highlight what they're doing and what we can offer in terms of collaboration. So one of the main purposes of ASAPA is to act as a scientific think tank and offer technical analysis of the major issues facing Sudan. And this has been done through some of our webinars. You probably all attended the higher education transition to democracy webinar, which was fantastic. We have a number of blogs on our website about issues facing Sudan and offering really deep technical analysis of these issues. So I really highly recommend everyone to visit the website. As Montasir mentioned, he has done an amazing job organizing that. The second purpose of ASAPA is to reach out to Sudanese institutions and the public to provide them with technical and material support in our fields of expertise. And we have done an amazing job, I think, during the COVID pandemic. ASAPA actually initiated the Coalition of Sudanese Americans against COVID-19. The idea came up at one of our meetings, the executive committee meetings, and we thought this pandemic needs a lot of effort, and not a single organization by itself will be able to face it. So we reached out to a number of Sudanese American organizations. Some of them are listed here, and the coalition then grew and included organizations from other countries. But ASAPA was really the cornerstone in building that. And one of the childs of this coalition that I'm really proud of is the Community Medical Response Team, which is the first Project ECHO program in Sudan, kind of brought this new innovative technology to Sudan. And through that, trained 500 volunteers in 13 states. And so far, the project has been going on for 13 months, delivered 40 sessions, and had over 2,500 attendees. And through that, the program has helped 63 patients, delivered 150 awareness sessions, 65 vaccine sessions, and 2,000 COVID doses have been administered to people around Sudan. 20,000 COVID vaccine doses have been administered. And that became the kind of the inaugural child of what we now call the Sudan Eco Center of Excellence. And as you can see, ASAPA is one of the main contributors to that in terms of helping with its research skills. And there is a research skill echo that we're now working on in collaboration with other organizations. So the history of collaboration in ASAPA is very rich, and we have done a lot of work in collaborating with other institutions. One of the newest childs of the ECHO is a waste ECHO, which is part of Sudan University for Science and Technology and Peace Engineering, a collaboration between organizations in Sudan and the US. And ASAPA also has contributed very massively to that. Montasir has attended a number of meetings to help with setting up that program. And this has led to expansion of ECHOs and learning sites all across Sudan, across 13 states, as we said right now. It has another purpose to create a linkage between Sudanese and American academic institutions. And we had done some of that during ASAPA's visit to Sudan in 2019. And during the conference in 2019 as well, there were a number of universities that were visited by ASAPA team members. And also part of the Project ECHO, there have been a number of universities that have joined the Project ECHO, including University of Dongola, University of Jazeera, University of Kordofan, University of Red Sea, and the Sudan Medical Specialization Board, the Minister of Health, etc. And again, ASAPA was a main cornerstone in building all of that. And last but not least, supporting a democratic vision for Sudan. And again, ASAPA has collaborated with a number of organizations. So members of the executive team help serve in the Sudanese organization and Jalia's advocacy group, as well as the Sudan Advocacy Task Force. And we've also conducted a number of webinars to highlight the issues facing Sudan in the democratic transition. We released a number of statements on our website condemning the coup and the massacres that has happened. Now, the purpose of today's conference and session is to provide a network and communication forum for all members, and also to outreach to other organizations. So I'm really proud to have three fantastic panelists, actually four fantastic panelists with us here today. So we have members from Zahara for Education. So instead of Ms. Ilham, we're gonna have Sahar representing Ilham and Dr. Awad Abdelhalim. We have representation from SAMA. We have Dr. Salah Abusin, who also serves in our executive committee for ASAPA. And last but not least, we have Mr. Zein, the president of Sudanese American Public Affairs Association. And we asked for them to kind of provide us with their current activities and how ASAPA can participate in those. And I just wanted to point out that this list is not exclusive. This is not representative of all the collaborators that we have. This is kind of just to provide example for other organizations, and our doors are open to collaborate with more Sudanese Americans organizations. So thank you very much. The floor is yours now, Sahar and Awad.
Amazing. Assalamu alaikum. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Just a moment. All right. Oh, okay. Wonderful. So my name is Zahara Omer. I am one of the co-executive directors for Zahara for Education. Zahara for Education is a social enterprise that was created and led by Sudanese students who had studied in the United States in the May of 2020. And since that date, we have been able to sponsor programs and sometimes teach programs that have taught over 120 students, and also have been able to participate in competitions, social innovation challenges such as the MIT PKG Ideas Social Innovation Challenge, where we were finalists both in 2021 and 2022. So the mission of Zahra for Education is to expand educational opportunities between Sudan and the United States. The organization or the initiative was first founded by recent graduates that included myself and Diham, where everyone has a strong tie to Sudan, and in some cases, some people had been raised in Sudan, but we really had seen the opportunities that we were able to gain here in the United States and realized that part of the reason why we were able to get those opportunities was just because of our fortunate circumstances of being able to access them. So our idea here is to expand access, and we have been very happy that we have seen so many students that have participated with us and have worked with us that are just as ambitious or even more than we were when we were going through the college application process and the job process after, and wanting to make sure that these opportunities can be as equitable and as fair as possible. So obviously it's a big goal, but we've been trying our best to fulfill it. So our project roadmap, I will talk about this later, but this is an overview of kind of the projects that we've been able to lead or are working on. I will go into more detail, but before that, I wanted to provide an idea of the organizational chart. So we have since expanded since our founding in May of 2020, where we first started with about 8 people who kind of were recent graduates and brainstorming and working on expanding. And now we are around 22 people, a much more structured team with sub-teams that are working on specific initiatives to make sure that our projects move forward. So the projects that were presented in the previous slide, I will now go into more depth about what we are doing and how we are hoping to support our mission. So the first project I wanted to talk about is the MIT Global Teaching Lab. So this was the first project that we were able to put together as Zahra for Education. And it was very successful in the sense that we were able to get funding, get support from MIT, and also get students that were very talented to participate. So the idea with the MIT Global Teaching Labs is that they were a virtual session. The first session that was ever held was 2 weeks. The second one was 1 week, 2 weeks, and it was 10 days. So there was a break in between. And the second one was 1 full week that was full 7 days of programming. And we as Zahra taught or brought in people to teach about a variety of different subjects. The idea was that this was more of like a survey, courses for people to just be exposed to different ideas, different change-making strategies. In the first session, the second session was more based off of knowledge and kind of spreading that knowledge forward. And both sessions ended with a research project in which the students were paired into groups and they actually presented on a topic of their choice in a way that is similar to what research presentations look like in undergraduate and graduate studies. So we had in our first session over 430 people apply, and we selected 50 students. We had about the same type of number for our second iteration of this program. And all of our students were very participative. They were very involved, and we were able to stay connected with them still. And in some cases, we have been able to support them in going to other universities. I personally have written recommendation letters for some people to attend universities in Europe when universities were shut down for Sudan. And in some cases, we've also had people who have worked with us and joined our executive board to keep supporting Zahra's initiative. So things that we were doing through the Global Teaching Labs is continuing our partnership. This was run through MIT, so this was in support with the MIT Africa office. But also we are working on exploring the possibility of moving the program to in-person, if that's possible. It has been held virtually for the both sessions of the program. Also, we want to expand this beyond MIT. So Ilham was basically our base, and so many others that were part of the organization who were students at MIT, but mashallah, they have all graduated. So we also realized that this program would be beneficial in so many other universities across the US. So we would want to, and this leads us to the things we need, identify schools and universities to serve as local hosts in the Sudan, but also here in the US, we wanted to have other universities support similar programs. Also, if we were able to do in person, we would want help with country-specific guidelines for international students regarding exchange or travel, and also assistance with publicizing. While we were very happy with the amount of applicants we had, we always want more and people from all parts of Sudan. So that is something that we look forward to do more with the MIT Global Teaching Lab. The second project that we have been working on that is kind of came out of the MIT Global Teaching Labs is actually led by students who participated and to teach their own version locally for Sudan. So the idea is, this is still in development, but we have been working with students in developing a similar program that runs for a week or 2 weeks that explores different topics that are specific to Sudan or might be more important than maybe topics that might be covered here in the US. We've been working directly with these students to create those templates and provide resources and assistance to them through our grants that we've received here in the US. Things that we've been needing for the future is like trying to scale the program to more schools and participants, the broad adoption of idea of older students teaching younger students in a way to supplement education and to expand beyond the Sudan. So most of our projects, it's easy to start في الخرطوم, but our idea is to try to expand the wilayat and other parts of the country as much as we can. This is another project that actually the first round of it has been completed, but we're in planning for the second round of this project. This is called the Zahara Learning Hub. And what we did with this project is we matched 20 students in Sudan with US and Sudan-based teaching assistants to guide them through courses that were offered by edX. We were actually able to sponsor those courses through scholarships that we were able to get through a partnership with edX. And we tried our best to either provide internet access or hubs where students could go to, they could take these courses online to Sudan. And as I mentioned, the scholarships for all students that participated. This also it did not have as high of a turnout in applications as the GTL, but we had 20 students that were very interested in, and 4 teaching assistants that were volunteered their time to assist and teach students for around 6 weeks. So we're in the same process of going through this again. Things that we need for this particular project in the future would be similarly to the other projects, outreach, but also we would like a pipeline for the program where we'd like people to continue to volunteer or for the program, sorry, like either so they could work as volunteers or internships or something afterwards. So it does not just stop at the courses. Also, we found that it would be beneficial to the students to have internet centers for rural students to participate in the program. So we would like more support for a physical location where people could either use the internet or even work together in some cases. Our next project that we're also in planning of and working towards is the Zahara Innovation Lab. So the idea here is to develop spaces where you have a variety of different tools and equipment that students and community members could use so that they could kind of promote their own creativity and innovation. These machines or equipment that might be included would be 3D printers, art studios, computers, and relevant softwares. We have been able to secure funding as finalists through the PKG Ideas competition to help start funding these innovation labs, but we still have ways to go, but we are in the process of developing it. We have a concept plan, but we're still looking for partnerships. We do have one partnership with 249 startups to use their space for the initial innovation lab, but we were exploring partnerships with universities and technology hubs in Sudan. Additionally, we're always looking for funding for sources, funding sources, just because it is an expensive enterprise that is looking around to be $15,000. But we're seeking grants and trying to find ways so we can fund these this equipment. And also we would like identification of underserved areas. We were trying, our initial proposal was to actually have this في مدني, to have something outside of Khartoum, but we understand that the space that is offered to us right now is Fil Khartoum, but we want this to be something that is possible in the future. And also development of soft incentives for students to participate in extracurriculars through this. So not just to think of education limited to the classroom, but also to think of using the innovation lab as a way to continue learning. And then we also are working on the Zahara Ambassador Program. So this is where we're working with selecting student leaders from different universities for Sudan so that they could represent Zahara on campus, so they could be a more accessible face, as opposed to where a lot of the team is based in the US or other parts of Sudan. And these students would help host expos, hackathons, and learning sessions to support students in the educational pursuits. And things that are needed for this program are developing partnerships with local universities, local connections to students, and potential sponsors to help support these local events that we have been planning on. All right, for this particular project, I'm going to pass it on to Awad, who has been working on this much more closely than I am. Actually, I have not been doing anything for this, but just supporting. But I would like to pass the mic to him.
All right, thank you, Sahar, and you're busy doing other great things too, so this is great. I think everyone can hear me. I'll just briefly introduce this project. It's a project that it's outside Zahra. It's led by me and our co-founder Ilham and one of my colleagues. So he's also a Sudanese PhD student in University of Tennessee, Abu Bakr. And the project is really, it's a partnership with WRI Africa, the World Resources Institute in Africa are funding us to conduct this project where we're trying to create an information ecosystem for the public transportation system, the Mwasalat system in Khartoum. So the project is really, it's a big take to create the maps, the GIS files, and generate mobility survey data for researchers to actually be able to better understand how we can use innovation and data science to improve the public transportation in Khartoum, which is it's a long overdue facelift that we really need to do. So Zahra is the lead partner in the engagement and educational part of this project. So the first part, which we're starting this month, through the end of 2022 will be more on the data collection, the data coordination, and creating a data repository that we're going to open source. In the second part of the project, which is going to extend through the next year, 2023, it will be more of the public engagement. Again, similar activities of hackathons and workshops for the entrepreneurial community in Khartoum so that people can start developing solutions. And similar to what Sahar has mentioned, we have good partnerships with 249 startups, which is it's one of those startup support hubs in Khartoum. So we're really trying to find good entrepreneurs who are going to be using this data we'll generate to start creating innovative solutions for Mwasalat in Khartoum. So similar again here for this project, one thing that we'd really like ASAPA's help with is identifying input and volunteer hours too from experts, whether they're experts who are students or professors, anyone who's interested in public transportation and public policy, and definitely identifying additional sources of funding. It is a big project. We have secured some funding for it and some matching funding from MIT too, so that's going well. But again, I think like the previous session mentioned, there's, more income and more grant money is always welcome in those takes. And if you can go to the last slide, Sahar, just so that we close out, again, those are just some of the ways that we think ASAPA can help us at Zahra. Mentorship is definitely something, whether it's for us at the executive board or for our general team and the members of Zahra or the students that we teach. And connections to universities, both in Sudan and in the United States. We're really looking to build up more partnerships in Sudan. We've reached 13 states, so this is great, but we would always like to have more partners in Sudan, and definitely more partners here in America, not being just strictly restricted to MIT and MIT's resources. And you can see some of the resources that we would really appreciate your help with. And after that, I'll pass it back to Dr. Nada Fadul. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you, and we look forward to taking your questions and working with you in the future.
Wonderful and very, very impressive work. Thank you so much for sharing that with us today. And we really look forward to collaborating with Zahra in the future, more than what we have done so far. So we'll leave questions till the end in the interest of time. And thank you for sticking to your 15 minutes allotted time. And I'll move it on to our next panelist, Dr. Salah Abusin, treasurer of SAMA, so he can share with us SAMA's activities and potential for collaboration with ASAPA. The mic is yours, Salah.
Thank you, Nada. So, okay, can you see my screen?
Yep, we can see it.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much for the opportunity. My name is Salah Abusin. I'm a cardiologist in Chicago, assistant professor in Rush University. I'm actually on call today, so I know how I was supposed to do the talk, but she couldn't make it. For those of you who don't know the Sudanese American Medical Association, we are a non-profit organization which was established in 2008. So we've been around for a while. Our Sudan program started around 2015, so we do have a footprint in Sudan since 2015. And that has helped us a lot in translating Project ECHO into a reality in Sudan. So going through what Project ECHO is, So it's a very inspirational story by the founder, Sanjeev Arora. He's a hepatologist, a liver specialist based in the University of New Mexico, and that's a rural state. And what he discovered was that a lot of his patients who lived in faraway places were not getting access to him, and that's in New Mexico, which is an advanced, in an advanced nation. But even then, they could not get to the capital of New Mexico, which was Albuquerque, and the patients did actually die. So that's why he came up with the concept of Project ECHO, of moving knowledge, not moving people. So Project ECHO is more than just a Zoom session. It's standardized. It's made up of 20-30 minutes of a didactic, 20-30 minutes case presentation, and 20-30 minutes discussion. So there's a lot of interaction that goes into it. It does have a hub and spoke model, and what we implemented was developing a hub in our Sudan office in Khartoum and in the Faculty of Medicine, University of Khartoum. The other principle of Project ECHO is that it's no cost to the learner. It is supported by a web-based database, and there is a survey that's sent after every session. And there is quality control, which is done by the Super Hub, and in our case, it's in ECHO India. Everybody who is involved in moderation and coordination of the activity must go through 3 days of immersion. So it's really a different way of doing e-learning, a very different way. So to give you an example of how it works, this was actually the launch of the University of Khartoum ECHO. So the hub is actually in the Faculty of Medicine, University of Khartoum. And you can see here that this is a case presenter, and she's the one who's going to be presenting the case. And she's located in Sudan, in Khartoum. And the subject matter expert, and that's abbreviated to SME. In this case, it was Dr. Yasmin Mustafa, who works who works in Cleveland Clinic in Ohio. And he was the one who gave the didactic or the lecture. And then the learners were actually widespread. So here you have the learning site, which is University of Dongola. And then we had another learning site recently established in the Somali Sudanese Hospital in Mogadishu, Somalia. So you can see that all the principles of Project ECHO in making knowledge available and moving knowledge, not moving people, is exemplified in this picture. Now, we did manage to roll out a lot of partnerships over the last year. The African Association of All Maxillofacial Surgeons, the Sudan Medical Specialization Board, in addition to the Faculty of Medicine, University of Khartoum, Sobe University Hospital, University of Dongola, and University of Gadarif, and the Somali Sudanese Specialized Hospital in Mogadishu, Somalia. So this is what we've done over the last year. In August 2021, that's when our first program kicked off. That was the Frontline ECHO, which looked at acute cardiac emergencies. Then we did the Dialysis ECHO, which is dialysis care for physicians caring for patients with dialysis. And then we did the OMFS ECHO. OMFS is oral maxillofacial surgery. And that was still ongoing. Last month, we launched University of Khartoum ECHO. And next month, we're going to be launching Surgery ECHO. So as you can see, as time goes by, we are building a momentum in terms of launching more and more programs. So this is kind of a map that shows what we've been doing and where we've been doing it. So for those of you who might know Khartoum quite well, this is our SAMA hub, which is in Riyadh. And this is the University of Khartoum. This is active. Sobe University Hospital will follow soon. And we are having preliminary discussions with University of Milan. Their leadership actually came today to our Khartoum office to witness firsthand how a Project ECHO session is done. In Sudan, University of Dongola has been active for more than 2 months now. And Gadarif, we have secured funding for it. And we are in conversations with University of Jazeera and University of Sinnar. Now, obviously, the key component, which is important to note, that getting into the partnership essentially means securing funding. So in the case of University of Khartoum, we have secured funding for a high-speed internet. For University of Dongola, we've secured funding for high-speed internet. For Gadarif, we actually managed to get a pretty good seed grant, and we have secured funding for high-speed internet access. Now, when it comes to Africa, this is where we're working outside Sudan, and that's in Mogadishu. This is not funded. This is self-funded by Mogadishu, the Somali Sudanese Specialized Hospital. So as far as where our learners come from, it's all over the world, really. As you could see, Frontline ECHO, we had an SME from Canada. In Dialysis ECHO, we had a subject matter expert from Brazil. And then when we went to University of Khartoum, we had the learning site in Somalia. Once we engaged the African Association of Oral Maxillofacial Surgery, suddenly all of Africa was getting access to our programs, and you could see that most African countries are involved. There are countries, of course, where we have more than one echo activity, of course, Sudan, because we have a lot of subject matter experts and learners from the diaspora network in the Gulf area, UK and Ireland, and also India. Obviously, part of that is because Echo India, who does the quality assurance, does give us access to a lot of experts from India, and they're actually at a very high level. We're very proud of that partnership. So let's talk about performance measures. So learners, more than 1,600 learners have benefited from our activities since we launched. We've recruited more than 50 subject matter experts. We've launched 6 learning sites. Our learners are in 46 countries, and we have about 56 cases presented. And so, okay, so all that is good, but what do the learners think? So actually the comments we got were extremely positive. This is an example of one of the learners from the frontline echo. So streptokinase, for those of you who are not dealing with acute cardiac emergencies, which is most of you, it's a clot-busting medication. So if you have a heart attack, you need to get that medication immediately. So it happens when the person who's supposed to give that medication is a junior physician who's under-supervised, under-trained, they will not be able to make the right diagnosis or make the right decision. So what the learner learned from this activity, what they said, it made me feel more confident in starting the streptokinase therapy when indicated, rather than waiting for someone else to take such a decision. So a large part of what Project ECHO does is empowering people who are unempowered. The other comment here, for example, the presented case, it gave me a typical image for what we see in the emergency room. And that's a very important part of learning and teaching. It's very different to be sitting in a place which has all the resources and tell people what to do, compared to people showing you what they do, and then you refining what they can do better. Because what can be done better in a place which has very limited resources is extremely different from a place which is well-resourced. And this is something else which I found, which we just did this survey with, as we did our 6 months evaluation, and this is what people in Somalia felt about it. So in that survey, we asked, what have we done well? They said giving a chance for Somalian young doctors to expose them from doctors from all over the world. Previously, they felt that they were somehow isolated from the medical community around the world, especially those of them who were trained in Somalia. But now they get a chance to learn and discuss the topics with speakers from Sudan, Saudi Arabia, USA, UK, and Ireland. And that's exactly the emphasis of what Project ECHO is. It's reducing healthcare disparities, giving people opportunities for education, so to make this a better world. So, okay, so going back into more of logistics. So how is that work done? Now, one of the things we did with Project ECHO is really make all the day-to-day work in Sudan and Khartoum. So if you take this picture here, this is Ali Ragaa. Ali was a house officer, and now he actually came to the United States. He was running dialysis echo. This is a dialysis echo team. Ali actually matched into residency and is starting now in Rochester. Abu Bakr was a house officer in Sudan, and now he's in Detroit. He just started his residency. For those of you who are in healthcare, residency started like 16 days ago, and they all started. Abdel-Magid is our IT technologist. He's full-time staff, and this is Dua Sharafuddin. She's a house officer. In this picture here, this is going to be the surgery echo team. This is Noura, she's a house officer. Wisal is a house officer. Safa is an oral maxillofacial surgeon. So all the work is actually being done in Khartoum. Obviously, there's a lot of training, a lot of mentorship that's done by the US office. But when it comes to day-to-day, it's done completely in the Khartoum office. And that is actually a resource which we've worked a lot of years to develop, and it's something which is open for us to collaborate with. Our office has high-speed internet, it has a solar panel, it's located in a good place, it has significantly large office space, so we'll be more than happy to accommodate any partnerships from ASAPA that need to utilize these resources within Project ECHO or beyond. Now, talking about collaboration, we're very proud that on July 30th, we're going to have Professor Khalil giving a state-of-the-art talk about movement disorders. And we think that this is exactly where ASAPA can collaborate in this project by bringing the expertise. We're not really looking for donations of funds from ASAPA per se. We think that the human capital and the value of the SMEs and the positions they have to be its greatest asset. And that's why we think that would be the place where collaboration would be. Just think about connecting University of Khartoum with the University of Minnesota and University of Dungura, and we can see that solutions can come up to make things better in Sudan. So that's my last slide. And, you know, it's always, things in Sudan are always dark, you know, things are, challenging. Failure is very common, and we have a very high failure rate when we do our projects, but there's always, I think, a better future for us. And thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much, Salah, for the impressive presentation. And it's great to see the momentum building up in Sudan. And thank you again for sticking to your time. So our next speaker is Mr. Farid Zein. Farid is the president of SAPAA, Sudanese American Public Affairs Association. And we're really looking forward to hearing from him on how ASAPA and SAPAA can collaborate based on the activities that SAPAA has been doing so far. So the floor is yours, Farid.
Thank you, Nada. Can you hear me well?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, I will share my screen here. I have a few slides to go through, and then we can get into some conversations. All right, so just a few slides to introduce SAPAA for those that don't know much about SAPAA or the background of SAPAA. SAPAA stands for Sudanese American Public Affairs Association, obviously. The organization was started back in, officially launched in 2013.
Farid, if you, we see the presenter mode, so if you want to swap your screen, so we can see the first.
Okay, let me, can you see it now?
Yeah, we see the slides. They're not shared in presentation mode, but that's fine. If you want to just go through them like that, that's
I
fine.
will just go through them like that in the interest of time. As I mentioned, the organization was officially launched in 2013 as a nonprofit, nonpartisan, non-religious, member-driven national organization. It was started by a group of Sudanese Americans and Dr. Nada and her husband, Saif, were one of the early founders of SAPAA as well. And so many of the members have been active in the Sudanese American community throughout the United States. And it was really out of our collective experience in bringing Sudanese Americans together in an organization that will serve our interests as Sudanese American immigrants here in the US, with a focus on building a prosperous and a strong Sudanese American community, similar to all the other immigrant communities that have come before us here in America and have succeeded in America. We believe we as Sudanese are very talented individually, but we have traditionally not been very strong in coming together as a community. And that was the original purpose for bringing SAPAA together, so that we can learn from the experiences of other immigrant communities that have come before us. We set out to really build an organization for the future, to promote and strengthen the well-being of Sudanese American communities by increasing engagement. And the focus is on education, public awareness, self-empowerment, positive contributions to society. And that is, as well as leadership development, which is a big key area for us in the next generation. So the focus on Sudanese American youth who are either came young to this country or were born here, developing leaders for the future. And so we, from the beginning, felt that we needed to build a foundation for the future, and then turn over the leadership to the next generation of leaders. And that's what we've been building since 2013. What we've done so far is every year since 2013 held an annual conference where we bring together the entire Sudanese American community across the US to network, to celebrate culture, to get to know each other and support each other. And so our conferences have been a real awakening for many people that have not really been together with Sudanese Americans, especially the youth who have come to know SAPAA and trust the conferences as a place to meet, develop friendships in the future. And we're very proud to say that some of these friendships have turned into actual marriages. And so we are very proud of being able to bring the Sudanese American together in a focused area where we deal with serious topics. And so our conferences are usually a mixture of inspirational speakers, music, celebration of culture, sessions on education, business, startup. And many of you have been to some of our conferences. We started out in DC, New York, Virginia, Philadelphia, Chicago, and our last conference was in 2019 in Denver, which was the last conference in 2019 before, obviously, COVID shut down everything. And so we look forward to resuming these conferences next year. So our focus areas, as I mentioned, primarily are leadership development. We have an body called SAPAA Youth Leadership Academy, where we develop young leaders. We focus on mentoring and career advice, community service, networking, as I mentioned, in our conferences. And then we host workshops on topics that are of interest to the community. Some of the activities that we've done in the past are voter education and registration. We've worked on these areas, which are important for us as Sudanese immigrants to the US. Retooling for new careers, and that's specifically for new immigrants who have come here with advanced degrees or with other careers, and they're interested in retooling for new careers such as IT or other careers that are high demand. Home ownership are some of the things that we've also done in the past. Business startup, we have an active business group focusing on promoting business startups. And then we've worked with the US Census on awareness for the 2020 US Census and promoted the US Census and participation of the Sudanese American community in the census. Since 2019, what we have been focusing in, as I mentioned, since the conferences have not been possible, we've focused on really supporting the revolution and the democratic transition in Sudan. So we've been very actively involved in advocacy. We've worked extensively since the beginning of the revolution with the US government, specifically on advocating for transition in Sudan. We've worked extensively on the campaign to remove Sudan from the state sponsor of terrorism. And so that has been a very active area for us since 2019, and we continue to do that. We are very heavily engaged right now on advocacy activities with the US government. And then what we have done also, as Dr. Nada mentioned earlier, we were part of the COVID coalition early on, where we worked with other Sudanese American organizations in bringing the community together and responding to that. And then we've continued to really advocate for the community to stay engaged. These are some of the activities that we've done in the past. We have a lot of material in our website about the past activities, and I highly recommend some of you to visit the website and see some of the past activities and videos and testimonials from some of the youth that have come to SAPAA and have been very involved since they have gotten to know SAPAA. In terms of collaboration, obviously our mission, as I mentioned, is to bring Sudanese Americans together, and we were very supportive of ASAPA from the beginning. We worked with many of the leaders in getting the organization together, and I can see obviously two areas that are very important for us, and that is education. So we are very much interested in collaborating with ASAPA on promoting educational opportunities for our youth, either youth or those who are seeking career changes. And so we definitely see that as a big area where we can work together with ASAPA. Other areas that we think we can collaborate with SAPAA are obviously career opportunities for Sudanese Americans who are interested in careers in higher education. And then lastly, we are looking at promoting volunteerism within our community here and back in Sudan. And so we have an emphasis on taking Sudanese youth and providing volunteer opportunities in collaboration with other Sudanese American organizations as well. That's another area where we think we can collaborate with ASAPA. I'll stop here. In the interest of time, we are obviously very much interested in the success of ASAPA, and we're looking forward to working with ASAPA. And in our conference next year, we see an opportunity where we can bring the organizations together so we can explore areas of collaboration. And so we invite ASAPA to join our conference next year. So let me stop here and turn it over to you, Nada, and happy to address any other questions.
Yes, thank you so much, Farid, for the amazing information. Obviously, my testament in SAPAA is broken because I'm part of it, but I really miss the conferences. I miss the engagement of the youth with their Sudanese heritage and culture, which was absolutely beautiful. So I'm really looking forward to the next SAPAA conference. I just want to remind you that we did have a virtual conference in 2020 that was really well attended and was really well done for virtual conferences.
Yes, indeed. Thank you for reminding me of that. I almost forgot about it.
But it's not the same as in person, of course. Yeah. So we had a few questions, and I saw some of the panelists already answer them. Dr. Salah Abusin unfortunately had to step off to answer a stat request as he's on call. But we do have a couple of questions for Zahara. And I know that you answered some of them, but I think this is a good one. And I'm really curious too, to know, how did your interest begin in creating this organization, and what age grade? Who or what inspired you, and what qualities in you do you think helped your confidence as a young person to proceed?
I would say that for Ilham and I and the initial founders who came together to start Zahara, there was a combination of always just recently graduating and realizing that we had many opportunities ahead of us, but also this was 2020, الثورة كانت قايمة في Sudan, and there was a lot of feelings of we want to do something, but we're not sure the best way how to contribute. Is that for the people who couldn't go and participate or support? But there was a lot of feelings at that time of we want to do something, and what is the most actionable way that we can give back. But it started very big. The initial project was a semester exchange program where Ilham had experience as an undergraduate at the University of Alabama going and visiting Serbia. And she was like, what if we could recreate something similar with the Sudan, where we bring talaba in Sudan to the US and vice versa. This became a little bit more complicated than we anticipated. So but it's still a project that we have in mind. But in the as we were doing it, that was kind of a side proposal came the global teaching labs. MIT offered to support us with the global teaching labs as we were working on the semester exchange. But things started there, and when we saw the wide interest that we received from people in Sudan, and the global teaching labs program is already something that runs at MIT with different countries. It just had never been done before in Sudan. So it was we ran it for the first time. It was organized by the 8 or so founders that were there on the team at the time. We were able to pull in other people who are from MIT. I'm not an MIT graduate, so I was trying to understand the system, but also support as much as I could. But it was it was very successful. And Ilham and I, for context, we grew up together in the same hometown, so we were always connected. And then I went to school at Harvard, so I was already close to MIT and knew people who were at MIT where she was going to attend. So there was already people that we were friends, and we had already talked about organizing and had organized stuff for Sudan as undergraduates, especially around the revolution. But this was the first concrete long-term projects or mini projects, and that became an organization that we started and worked on together. And then we met Awad, who has been phenomenal and a great mentor and like has just been a huge asset to our team. So, and we added so many others that are, most of them are actually based in Sudan, which has really helped us in like finding programs that have been helpful for people in Sudan. And given that most of us went to school in the US or went to school in American systems, this is kind of where we started, and inshallah we can continue and do more and be beneficial to students who are seeking the same kind of opportunities that we were.
Yeah, this is awesome. This is really amazing. And I just admire what you guys have done, your love for Sudan, your commitment to helping the people back home, and also utilizing your expertise, what you know best and things that you can do best. Sometimes we get distracted by trying to follow somebody else's footsteps and duplicate what they're doing. But in your case, you just focus on your expertise and the things that you know how to do well and the organizations that you're connected with well. And you've done an amazing job, and we really wish you all the best and all the success, and we're here to support you in any way we can. So keep going. And speaking of youth and their connection to Sudan, I mean, as ASAPA members, we're all parents as well. We have youth that we would like for them to be kind of connected to their culture, to their heritage. And, you know, as busy academicians, professors, etc., we already have 5 big purposes in our organization. So how can we leverage that connection with SAPAA, Farid, to help us with this piece in our conference? One of the things that I noticed in our 2019 conference is that many of us brought our kids along and our families, and then they were bored. Like, you know, we didn't have any activities that focused on that. So all they could do is just kind of roam around and complain about the fact that they were bored. So what are the things we can do in collaboration with SAPAA that can help with, you know, assisting our families in the US?
Yeah, excellent question, Nada. One of the things that we wanted to do from the beginning was to create an environment that brings the family together. And indeed, we've been building on this. We started out in Chicago, actually, in the Chicago conference. We took a group of youth, if you remember, to the Museum of Chicago, to the museum, and that was a great event. And so what we are looking to do is to continue this trend. And our next conference, inshallah, is planned to be in California, and we're looking to bring the families together and really turn it into a family vacation. And so we were looking for vacation spots where the family can come together. We'll organize trips to sites that are of interest to the youth. And so we definitely are looking to build on that and create activities for the entire family. And we already have activities during the conference itself for the young adults. So as you know very well, we have sessions where we bring the young adults, only the young adults together, and that has been very popular. So now we're looking to bring that to the younger ones, and so starting from 8 and 10 age groups. So look forward to more of that in the next conference, where we're looking to bring family activities throughout the whole conference. So.
Excellent, thank you so much. And I wanted to add to the question that was posted about ethics and humane treatment of patients. And this is really a major issue in Sudan because we don't really focus in our medical education on humanism or treatment or communication or soft skills. So one of the things that we're doing with CMRT, the Community Medical Response, as well as the other ECHOs that have been launching, is that we're creating a leadership development ECHO, just specifically to teach communication skills and leadership skills and other soft skills. We're doing this in collaboration with 2 organizations here in the US. One of them is called Conscious Coalition, and then the other organization is Arbinger Institute. There is a book that was wrote by one of the Arbinger founders. It's called The Outward Mindset. It's just a beautiful book about leadership and how you can focus on the outward, not the inward. And this is, they have already delivered a couple of sessions for the volunteers and they absolutely loved it. But I think that's really a major thing that not only will serve the medical profession, but just the person in general in Sudan on how to communicate, how to resolve conflicts, etc. So that's a really important question and one of the things that ECHO can definitely help resolve in Sudan. So I think we're at time. We've done a really good job staying within our time, and I'm really grateful to the panelists for the wonderful presentation, and we really look forward to collaboration with all of you. Thank you so much. Back to you, Montasir.
Thank you very much, Nada. This was an amazing session, and thank you all for coming. I just want to say thank you for everybody who has joined us today, and I remind you that tomorrow we have another very interesting session that will start with His Excellency Ambassador Dr. Nuruddin Sati. He's our ambassador, and we are sticking to it. So he's going to talk about Sudan, Al-Waqi' wa Afaq al-Mustaqbal. And then we're going to have a session about challenges facing Sudanese community, including family challenges, state planning basics for everyone, and navigating the education system in the US. After that, we're going to have a small business meeting with the ASAPA members. So we're looking forward to seeing you all tomorrow. Thank you very much, and have a good day.